Good evening. I'd like to call the budget workshop to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Thomas Masters. Chairperson Tanya Davis Johnson.
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Lynn Hubbard.
Here.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Present.
Councilperson Julia Botel.
Here.
Councilperson Terrence Davis. City Manager Karen Hoskins.
Present.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is here. City Attorney Andrew DeGraffenwright. You may proceed.
Stand for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Manager.
Madam Chair, this is a continuation of our budget workshops from last night, and I know you all requested, well, based on last night, you requested additional information. Mr. Sherman has that information to hand out to you all. Also, I emailed you the cost allocation plan, which was one of the requests. And you also requested a list of the vacant positions along with the budgeted salaries. I do have that list. However, I did not complete putting in the budget salaries, so I will email that to you on tomorrow.
Let's see what we got. We tried our darndest. I'm not sure we hit everything on the head, but okay. Good evening, Randy Sherman, Director of Finance and Administrative Services. First document that we have for you are the salaries. Now, what I will tell you is typically when we're working through the manager's budget, we're using a lot of real rough numbers. We try to update the positions and individuals and get it as specific as we can about April. And then from that point, we're using some percentages here, percentages there. And then once the manager usually releases the budget, then we go back and we'll update and get it real nice and neat and tidy again for all the transactions that have happened maybe the last 60 to 90 days. So I tried to start doing some of that today. So these numbers are not going to tie exactly to what you have in your budget numbers. Because again, as soon as somebody terminates and I can get rid of this salary and bring in a lower salary, or somebody gets promoted, everything obviously, keeps changing along the way. So, but that is your salary numbers as far as where I am, and obviously I'll continue to work and get those more refined. The second request I have here was on travel. We ran a detailed travel report, and it's kind of messy because, again, you see a hotel bill here, and then you see, a conference fee here, and things don't necessarily match up, and it's real hard to tell exactly what the trips were for. So I really think I almost need to go back to Q Alert and get you something out of Q Alert to try to give you, get all that information. But what I do have here, at least for you to look at tonight, is the budgets for 17, the actuals for 17, and the same for 18. Take that. So we're still working on the travel. If I understand, do you want to know specifically exact conferences and all that, or just the spending? I'm not sure
Madam Chair?
where the request was coming from.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you
No,
recognize.
it was the total amount that had been spent. I
Okay,
wasn't
so
looking
maybe if you
for-
look at this and then maybe,
Yeah.
and if you need something else, then we'll go
Okay.
from there. Okay. The third thing that we worked on today was trying to go back, very similar to the travel, and go back and look at everybody's contract services. This was a little simpler because we could pull it out by vendors. So this is about 2,000 lines that we've squished down to about 8 pages. So again, if you need more detail on this, we certainly, if you'd like to know which department is actually doing the spending, we have it. We just were trying to consolidate this report. But when you get this, what you'll see is it's a list of vendors and how much was spent to each one of these vendors under the contract services line. And we did it, I actually ran it from October of 16 through August of 18. So again, if you want us to break it out by year, we certainly can go back and do that. Okay. Also want to point out something. I know City Manager did send out the cost allocation plan. The plan that we have in hand and that you now have actually needs to be rerun because, again, once you settle all of your budgets or get an idea with the budgets, you go back and you rerun the cost allocation plan to, again, try to reallocate and make those direct charges. So again, when you look at fleet and IT in here, the numbers by department will not match perfectly because what they were trying to do when they were trying to get the budget out to you was manually go in and make some adjustments, not necessarily rerun the whole plan. But we will get the plan rerun and again get all those numbers updated.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize?
for the contract services, I think Ms. Hubbard asked, and I, as well as I maybe, how do we know which ones go with which departments?
From this you don't, but again, we have it in, like I said, it's about a 2,000-line spreadsheet. So we can go back, if that's what you would like, we'll go back and break it out by department. And
Okay.
give you the vendors by department. Some of the vendors obviously cross
Right, right,
departments,
right.
but we'll break it out by department if that's
Okay.
what you'd like to see.
Okay, yes. Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize?
with the contract services, these are the contracts, is it solely the contracts that the department head has the authority to sign for? Or does this include those that came to us as well?
It would include the ones that come to you
Right.
all also.
It would
'Cause
include
you have
both.
like the lobbyists, the state and federal lobbyists.
Okay.
I see the security.
How much trouble is it to get the ones, break it out? When you break it out by department, will we be able to see which ones are being signed off by the department heads?
Without going back to the actual documentation, we wouldn't necessarily know who signed it, just, from what we see in the system.
Would that take a little more research?
It would take, we'd have to go in and almost pull every one of these unless, purchasing could help or somebody else, could certainly help.
All right, I'll get to that
Okay,
later.
we'll get you by department and see where we want to go from there. Okay. Okay. All right, then, wasn't quite sure what process we were going to be using tonight, so I actually have a memo to you. This one here has to do with the local business tax, and you had asked for a copy of the statute. So again, if I see if we can send those up. And again, this is dealing with the exemptions that were added during the last legislative session for the business tax. So if you, I don't know if everybody, when you get it, the actual exemptions are on page 9 of the legislation. Did I have anything else?
I think that's it.
Oh, I did have one other. Millage rate. We were asked about the millage rate. Right now, you've approved the maximum millage rate at 8.452. If you were to reduce that to 8.352, so just 1/10 of a mil, that's roughly $500,000. So if you do a half a mil, you're talking $2.5 million. A whole mil, you're talking $5 million. Okay. Actually, Karen, I do have one more. I'm sorry, Madam Manager, I do have one more. And I actually have this slide. When we get around to it, I can put it up on the slide. We were asked to put together the building permit revenue versus the costs. We had actually done this last year during the budget process, so we only needed to update it for the balance of 17 from last year and 18. So again, I can hand out, got it? Stay in my place. Stay in your lane. Are there enough there? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't give you guys copies of the last
That's all
ones. Okay. So again, what this shows is the, because we actually last year had it in graph form as well. Did you need any more? You're good. I have more. And here's- this is that one. I don't think you guys got. So again, you can see the fluctuation from year to year going with the economy, whether it's costing us more or we're bringing in more revenues than our actual costs. And I know when we get to development services, I'm sure we'll be talking about that. But I believe, Madam Manager, that is all I have at this time.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, if it's you all's desire, we can move into the budget presentations. I believe Development Services was first on the list
Yes.
for tonight.
Page 26, and code is on page 43. Good evening,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Gagnon, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff Gagnon, Acting Director of Development Services. So you have before you our organizational chart, stemming from our citizens and residents, Honorable Mayor, City Council, City Administration, Department Administration, as well as our three divisions, Building Services, Code Compliance, and Planning and Zoning. For reference, page 28 of the tentative budget document that I was working from, I believe it's still accurate, reflects planning and zoning, so that's 28. 29 is building services, page 30 is administration, and page 45, I believe, is code compliance.
A little different than 40.
Different pageation then? Okay. Ignore the pages then.
Community development, well, it's still listed as community development.
Yeah,
So we
We
have
are-
planning and zoning on 26, inspections, community development on 27, administration of community development 28.
And then code was,
And then code was 43.
so three are clustered and code is the outlier, so. To build off the organizational chart, this is a listing of our positions. We have 30 positions within our department. I've listed each individual position by division just for reference. This was the same slide that we discussed when we looked into resolution 11-18 that was approved on March 7th of 2018 that allowed staff to create new positions associated with development services to help achieve some of our goals more expeditiously. So I know last night we had difficulty reading these screens, so what I've done, the following 3 slides are each 3 of these panels just on separate slides, so they'll be more legible. So the budget modifications for this fiscal year, as you can see from the slide before, there's about a 7% increase in salaries, and that's based on the fact that that resolution was approved, as previously mentioned, in order to fund those positions. Additionally, we are requesting, and it's in the budget, $55,000 to modernize our front entrance area for planning and zoning and building division. This is really our main hub. It's our first interaction point with the development community and residents, so we thought it would be prudent to modify and renovate that area. So the personnel line is increasing approximately 7%. Operating is actually decreasing about 0.5%. The capital line is provided at $55,000, and the staffing is referenced at 30 employees per the previous resolution. In a nutshell, our goals are to complete our comprehensive plan amendments. We've started that process, have been in communication with the state, have had some brief conversations at planning and zoning board meetings. So our goal is to complete comprehensive plan amendments, also continue with our departmental rebranding, even some of the archived city documents. Document tonight doesn't reflect development services, so we want to make sure that that's accurately reflected moving forward. Additionally, we want to revisit all our standard operating procedures, ensure that they are up to all current state statutes, ensure that they're efficient and productive for everyone. And also we want to look at our code compliance ordinance and really amend it to ensure that that process is as effective as possible. Just based off the question last night, as far as some of the items that are associated with our contract and professional services, this is amongst all 3 divisions. Mainly, the funding sources are utilized for planning and zoning board meeting minutes, as well as reviewing technical documents such as plats that requires a surveyor to review. A major element is associated with code compliance hearings and also boarding and sealing of properties, as well as maintaining nuisance property. And one of the big ticket items is also our comprehensive plan amendment. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Botel, you recognized.
thank you. I see an amount of almost $1 million on the contract services listing we just received from the finance director to CAP. Where is that reflected in this budget?
Which document are you referencing now?
Contract services, October 1st, 2016 to August 7th, 2018. It's got $984,699,000 to CAP services.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Madam City Manager.
those are expenses for year-to-date, starting 2016
Okay,
through
so-
2018.
Where on the actual 2017 then, or 20? So they would be reflected in the 2017 actual?
Right, they were in 16, 17, and 17, 18. So you will see under operating expenses is lumped together, the under 17, 18 number for CAP. What do you pay CAP out of? Is that under inspections, Jeff?
So, Mr. Chairman's saying yes. CAP has been an interesting phenomenon, for lack of a better term. Funding source, because we had so many vacancies, I believe money was being transferred from the salary line items in order to facilitate payment of that third-party plan reviewer and inspector. Within the current budget, there's only about $50,000 worth of, I guess we'll say, available funds to help facilitate additional third-party inspection and review processes, unless, again, we have vacancies, which we do have vacancies, and that salary portion can be utilized to pay for that third-party process.
So we will continue to use CAP. Do we have a building official that can perform the functions of a building official, or do we need to continue to use CAP to do that?
CAP has not performed that function in
They
some
don't.
time.
Have they done that in the past?
They did for a very brief period of time. That was well over a year ago.
Okay. So we're not going to incur this kind of a cost going forward?
No, absolutely not. We actually have made a couple key hires that I think will at least half, if not cut the existing expenses to a third. From a hiring standpoint, there's just not enough skilled individuals that have the plan review and building inspection licenses that are required to hold these positions. And because the private market is really booming right now, it's very difficult to incentivize individuals to apply for the positions. So we've had major difficulty filling some of those key technical positions.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Chair
Yes.
Pro Tem, you recognize?
Mr. Gagnon, the, I know you said because there's a great demand for these individuals that are holding these certificates. Are we advertising for all the positions that we need so that we won't use CAP at all?
We've advertised, and we actually learned from lack of response that now we have postings on our website that are just open until filled. So we're hoping that we get qualified applicants that will be able to satisfy our job requirements. Depending on what happens with union negotiations, and again,
Are we offering competitive salaries?
we are, however, if the union negotiations result in the increase that's been discussed, I think it'll be very competitive.
Okay, because I know we had authorized earlier that we go out and increase, the salary so that you would be able to attract more. And we have the money to pay them now. I think in total from 2016 to 2018, we bought in $8 million. So, and that was not being fully staffed. So I'm hoping that if we get fully staffed, we won't even have to use CAP for the $25,000 that we have there. The $900,000 that we used was prior to bringing on a building official.
I believe from the document Mr. Sherman just handed, that is from the entire span of time from October 1st, 2016 up until now. So that would have been before our current building official was hired and then also after.
Okay, okay. So are we going to, did we go out for advertising for another company outside of CAP? Am I remembering that correctly, that you put that back out for bid?
There was an RFP.
Mhm.
I'm not 100% sure of the status right now, so I don't know how much we should discuss it, but there was an RFP that was put out.
I see. Okay. In your, so you, okay, you can go ahead. Are you done with your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Or we can ask the questions based on this? The training budget that you have here, is that sufficient for all three divisions? Or,
Yeah, so I guess I'll piggyback off of Chief Madden yesterday, where I think a lot of departments asked for a lot of things, but unfortunately, they haven't all been supported. We're very happy that we have the support to do the renovations to the lobby area. So there was discussion of increasing some of the educational line items.
The reason I bring that up is because if we don't continue to keep the certification of the staff inside moving upward, we'll be out on the street again using third-party companies. And I think we need to invest on the front end as opposed to paying dearly on the back end. So I just thought that was quite small in an effort for you to be able to do that, because you need the planning team, the planning division, to review those plans for businesses so that businesses can see us moving expeditiously through our plan review system, and they'll want to do business with us.
We definitely want to take an aggressive approach as far as training, education, continuing education, certificates, things of that nature. What I can say is the line item isn't exactly what we requested. However, it's worked this year to date. So if it does come to a point where there are multiple opportunities and staff are really taking advantage of it, then we can look to see if there's other ways of shifting funds to make sure that the education is accommodated and provided.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
a quick question. What are you going to do for $55,000 over there?
So the entire front of the, I'll call it the lobby, as soon as you open the door, it's not pleasing, it's not laid out very well. If you take a really close look at the building counter itself, at some point in time when computer monitors were invented, that's how far back we're going, instead of designing the counter to accommodate that, someone took a jigsaw and just cut a space in the counter. So things like that, you don't see it unless you really look, but it's one of those things, you've walked into it so many times you don't necessarily notice it, but if I am a contractor or business owner or resident and I walk into a facility that's supposed to be promoting good business practice, good development practice, and there's something like that that's visible, we just need to take care of that. So we want to basically give it a facelift the same way that the council chambers received, and help rebrand the department and division by doing that.
So it's all going to the front lobby area?
Yes.
In the lobby, in the front, where people come in to interact with the staff in the front of the...
Mr. Gagdon, let's talk code enforcement, code compliance. We have relaxed our code as it relates to fines and not really being aggressive. Because I can tell you of some things that I'm seeing throughout District 3 that are just unbelievable. And I want to know what is the plan moving forward for increased code officers, or how we are going to approach those nuisance and just really be aggressive in our approach to clean up the city. Can you speak a little bit about what the plan is for that?
Sure. There's multiple things that we're looking to do. One that we mentioned was looking at the actual ordinance that outlines the process for code enforcement in the city. We've been working with our consulting attorney that has worked on multiple items for the city and other cities, specifically in code compliance, Ms. Godot, and we have a draft that is 97% complete, and we want to bring that before council, and I think it will streamline a process that takes too long. So instead of having multiple notifications and sending a notice to send another notice, it's a one notification system. It's proven very effective in other locations. I believe Lake Worth has utilized a similar system, and it's been very effective. The other thing we need to do is to continue to ensure that the positions are filled. We have, at this point, at least 2 code compliance positions that are vacant. Unfortunately, just about a week and a half ago, we lost one of our code enforcement officers to another municipality, I believe. So we have to be aggressive as far as advertising the positions and maintaining our current workforce. In addition, we need to rely on technology more. We have an archaic system that doesn't utilize technology that's available. So instead of a written notice, why not use an iPad and have something that you press certain buttons that identify what violations may be present on site. You press print, you have a printer that prints it out, and that way you have something to place on the property, as well as having something similar to an email notification sent to one of the code-compliant technicians that will receive the information simultaneously.
Have we invested in this technology?
It's something that it doesn't even require a large investment, I don't think. I think it's really just the hardware itself and getting the tablets, getting the computers. So we've come up with some GIS strategies that we've done in-house that haven't been fully implemented, that have cost nothing more than staff time. But there are other modules that are available that, again, are very effective, and perhaps it's something we should look at to see how much it really would cost to utilize that software. There also could be connectivity with Tyler Munis that's coming on board as far as ease of access to information. Right now, we don't have a unified system that speaks one department to another. At this point, if you need something from a department or division, you have to make a phone call or stop by, and it's not efficient. So hopefully Tyler can help as well.
So here's where I'm at. The $55,000 allocation to the improvement, are we sure that that is the absolute bottom? Can we not reduce that in order to bring our systems into play? Because for instance, the business tax receipt is the strangest thing to me ours in comparison to the city of West Palm or Palm Beach County and the way that we have that information laid out. And I'm just wondering, if that's a business practice or is that just the way we've always done it? But I would like to see us possibly allocate a portion of that 55. I do agree with you that that front area needs to be improved, but I also believe that there is a greater need for improved technology and the way that we are distributing and disseminating information to the public and internally. So I would like to see you guys go back, take a look at that $55,000 that you have indicated it will cost to rehab that front, find out what the absolute best dollar value for that repair can be, but also look to expend some of the dollars in the technology. And with you saying that it's a minimal and nominal cost in order to utilize the technology that you mentioned, I think that would be a better use of the dollars.
I agree.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Gagnon?
Madam Chair. With the monies that y'all brought in this year, totaling close to $8 million, well, 16 to 18, is it possible that the funds are there for you to do both? Because, I mean, if you're bringing in the money, you've got to reinvest it in order to provide a more efficient service. You can't be scared to use the money. That's the only way we're going to be able to provide a higher level of service.
4 million.
I think for a discussion purpose, the answer is maybe, but maybe it'd be best for staff to go back and look and see what is available, and then we can discuss it on a staff level to see what the cost would actually be, as well as whether or not there's a need to bring back a separate resolution to fund the software if it does cost a large amount.
Now, Madam Chair, now Tyler Munis, can you go into detail about that, or Mr. Sherman, about what their services will provide as far as building permits, the technology piece? Are you,
Oh, I can provide an overview. It's still, the modules themselves are still being created. So we're at a point now where staff is working with Tyler Munis staff to create all the necessary elements within these modules. As it's slowly rolled out, we're hoping that each module will speak to the next module. It'll take a little bit of time to input all the information, but at least from a starting point moving forward, you'll have current information that will be reliable, for one. It'll be clean data, so it won't be no errors within the data set, as well as being able to have users look in different modules, maybe not to manipulate the information, but just to look and see. So the way it's been presented to me is you could have all the information associated with an address or PCN, and it would display on one page, or at least have a functionality where you can access all the information in a few easy steps versus trying to go from one division or one department to really patch all the information together.
and that will be up and running? Do we have a, no?
I have, I think, later this week, they're just installing a financial module that's a little bit further along than the building side right now.
Okay.
So that's just now being installed on my computer, and that's still, it's still in a draft mode. I believe Mr. Sherman mentioned something about a proposed October rollout, and that's for the financial.
October for the financials.
Okay, so
Okay.
about October for the financial rollout of Tyler.
Madam Chair.
I have one other question on code. In your Department of Goals and Objectives, you talk about the Code Compliance Reinvestment Program. And
Yeah.
it talks about taking a portion of revenue generated, using it to help eligible residents and improving neighborhoods. How do you determine eligibility, and how do you plan to roll that out?
So the fine details haven't been ironed out yet. We've had the funding source hasn't been gathered the same way. However, we've had very successful programs that were, unfortunately, small-scale programs, but very effective. One that comes to mind is the Senior Roof Housing Assistance Program, where we set criteria, council approved it, there was a resolution, a program was designed based on, it was need-based, it was age-based, it was also incumbent that the individual was a resident of the city. So once we set up the process to reallocate those funds, to reinvest, the program that we want to establish, it could be 1, it could be 3, it could be 10, whatever the council chooses as far as what programs would be most effective for their specific neighborhoods or districts. Once we have the program set up and we have that funding source, then we can decide how it's best spent.
Okay, I'll be looking to hear more about it as you flesh it out. Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
Thank you. I just want to caution us, as we look at the chart, for example, that shows the building permit revenues versus costs from 2000 to 2018, we can see the peaks and troughs and the times when there were lots of revenues, say in 04, 05, much higher than the expenses. And then we see the troughs in 08, 9, and 10, where our revenues were much less than our expenses. I just want to caution us against assuming that we have a lot of money coming in now, so therefore we can spend it on whatever we like. You know, there's a lot of building going on now on Singer Island. We have 3 large projects being built over there right now. That's not going to last. The land over there is coming, the available land over there is coming to an end. And we're not going to see these kinds of revenues going forward. There's not going to be that kind of money coming in from building permits. And so I just want to be sure that we're cautious about spending money that's coming in by way of building permits and not saying, well, let's go do this and that. And I also think, I agree completely with Chair Tanya Davis Johnson, because I think $55,000 is an awful lot of money to spend on renovating a lobby when we can take a look at maybe spending some of that money on upgrading your technology. So I would agree wholeheartedly that that's something we should look at. Maybe spending a little bit less money on that lobby and spending a little bit more of that money on technology. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize.
The tech plan that we had, or the 5-year plan for the tech.
For IT?
Yes, for IT, that does not include anything that he was referring to regards to technology.
Yes, it's part of the Tyler Munis implementation. And as he said, I'm not sure when the building piece will be implemented, but that is the IT master plan included Tyler Munis, which included all the department's modules.
But the amount of money that we were allocating for the tech master plan, he needs additional monies on top of that?
I don't think it was contemplated when the IT master plan was created. So there were,
They didn't work with you all when, or were you not involved at that time? I mean,
it's fine. So,
the IT just made up what they wanted to make up for the
well,
departments,
I
or the
think,
departments gave input?
it was need-based. I think there was input given, but I think there's a different perspective now, just on the department in general. One example is code compliance officers didn't have work cell phones.
Said it again.
Code compliance officers did not have work cell phones because I believe they were relying on police radios. So during that shift, it wasn't identified that, okay, code compliance officers need phones. In addition to the fact that they don't necessarily have iPads or laptops or the hardware to actually utilize the Tyler system. So we're paying a good amount of money to have the software implemented, but if we don't have the actual hardware to use the program,
And
Doesn't
none of
work.
that was discussed when they were going over that. They didn't foresee that because they were with the police department at the time, is what you're saying?
it could have been. I wasn't part of that conversation.
Did Mr. Sherman have something to add? I know you were looking like you wanted to get up.
Yeah, again, when they did the master plan back in 2015, they priced out that it was going to be 5 years, $7.5 million. We have to date funded about half of that. So again, as we go into the capital projects next year, we'll put in the next piece and the next piece and the next piece. My guess is when they came up with the price tag, they weren't counting all the ancillary little pieces of technology. That doesn't mean the IT master plan can't look to fund some of those items. Certainly, you know, we're doing the financial portion downstairs. We need all new cash machines and credit card machines and all of those types of issues as well. So as we go through, we look at the budgets, which, from year to year, I think, again, they're looking to implement, maybe first or second quarter of the next fiscal year. As we get to the capital and we start putting that into the IT master plan, I think, that certainly is an appropriate, place for it. But as Mr. Gannon said, we'll go back, we'll look at it. I'm not sure what counts and everything, but the way Tyler is intended to operate is off of phones, off of iPads, be in the field, apply for your permit from your living room. All of these, the technology is there. We just have to make sure that the staff has the technology on their side to be able to do that. So we'll get together and we'll talk about that
Okay,
further. Make sure they have the tools they need.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize.
Mr. Sherman, speaking of Tyler Munis, there were a lot of comments about the success or the operation of Tyler Munis, and articles, if you will, on the web. I think, if nothing else, since we've already engaged them, we need to make sure that those things that the other municipalities who feel that they have had tremendous problems with, that we don't have those problems, because there have been several recent municipalities that were quite dissatisfied with
Yeah.
Tyler Munis, yes.
Yeah, well, I've read those articles too, and we've talked to our project manager about those. And again, some of those articles go back several years.
Some of them do,
Some of
but I'm
them,
only
but-
talking
and-
about the recent
And there's new,
ones.
and I have my networks, and I have people that I talk to that say, well, we've had problems with this, and we've had problems with that. And I think as we've gone through the issues, knowing where others have had their problems.
And that was my point,
Yeah.
to make,
Yeah.
the recent concerns is a point of reference for us to
Right.
make sure that we look at those particular things. And
Right
the
up
second thing is, I don't think that we should operate in a vacuum and just have IT or finance be exposed to the implementation or the design of that, of Tyler Munis coming into the city, because every department's use for Tyler Munis is going to be different, and every department can lend something more to the conversation as to tell us what they need. But I think our problem always is we operate within a vacuum, and there's little that finance can tell police or Parks and Recreation, and little that community development might be able to tell finance, and vice versa. So we have to invite other people to the conversation, and then not just be in a position where we're shoving it down everybody's throat when someone could tell you, hey, this is not doing what they told you it was going to actually do. And you could have that icon, the draft icon on those departments' desks early in the game.
Yeah, I will tell you that they have spent a lot of time with purchasing. The Tyler staff has spent a lot of time with purchasing. They spent some time with Parks, Public Works, Utility District, especially when we're dealing about setting up project accounting and doing those types of issues. Right now, I will tell you, CRA has been a big player in this, because again, CRA is going to be used in the system. And as we get into the actual hands-on, training, we'll have your own staffs as part of that as well to come in. And that's where we make those, final adjustments. Most of the work up to this point has been creating vendor files, creating the chart of account, creating all the charge codes for accounts receivables. It's all of that basic background financial type work. But you're right, we've, again, had meetings with the department to talk about projects and the like. And again, as we go forward, I'll tell you, the system is very flexible. Again, the CRA has a little different slant than the city has. And I think we've been able to accommodate, what they're doing. So, I agree. And as we certainly get into the next phase, because as soon as this one kicks off, we'll get into the human resource portion of it. Because again, payroll is not coming on at this point. Utility billing is not coming on at this point.
Pardon me. Let the record reflect that Councilman Davis
Oh,
is on the dais. Please continue.
So again, there's a lot. There's a lot of input that's coming from the other departments.
Two things.
Yeah.
The BTR list, we used it to try to engage employers for the Summer Youth Employment Program. And I have one of those gray carts, the gray rolling carts, that's full on the top and the bottom of envelopes that was returned. My question to that is there not a system in place to purge doing renewals? So, when you send out your notices, will this Tyler Munis system address that? Can you imagine the postage
Yes.
that was?
It'll be leaps and bounds above where we are today. There was never the, at least from best I can tell, there was never really a large emphasis on filling in all the fields in the financial system, whether it was on the vendor side or whether it was on the BTR side. So we have, as you know, we have very little information to be able to pull out of that system. Somebody says, I want to know all the churches. It takes us a while to go through and try, because things just have not necessarily been set up. We spent a lot of time knowing that a new ERP system was coming to try to scrub all those files and clean all those files. But yeah, when we do the billing, and we get those same envelopes back, because businesses have gone out, they don't tell us that they're out of business, because we only we only have a contact with them once a year. We do then go and we do try to follow up with those. We close them out, we purge them, we try to follow up on them. But as you know, it changes every day, it changes rapidly. And again, our hope is, again, once you get into the Tyler, is a lot of those billings will be electronic billings. We'll be able to email the customers, we'll be able to stay better on top of them. But right now, everything is manual.
Two
Yeah.
last questions. So the permitting process, I remember when we last talked, we said before the permitting process is tied to Tyler Munis, finance had to be tied to Tyler Munis first.
Right.
So at what point, since they are such a big player in this, or a big income generator for the city, do you see them coming online?
When do I see development services coming online? Yeah, development service, I think, is probably running 60 to 90 days behind the finance process. And again, you have to have the finance process so they can do their job, so they can take in their money, and we can get the billing. So you had to have finances done first, so that's why that one's running a little bit ahead. But there is, obviously the system already has the link between their module and the finance module. So when they're ready to go, they will take the charge codes that we've already set up, and then those charge codes will go in their system, and then we'll have that link. So again, somebody could go online, they could order an inspection, they could pay their fees, what they need to pay. We would then collect it, we'd hit the codes, and they would have on their iPad in the next morning, here's my inspection schedule.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Okay, thank you, sir.
okay.
Are there any other questions for Development Services? Thank you, Mr. Gagnon. Justice Service Center? Justice Service Center does not have an individualized page. They fall under the city administration budget, so we will address any questions about that budget to the city manager.
And
There's no page for that. They're included in her budget, which is page 12, actually.
And Madam Chair,
Yes, Madam City Manager.
they have a total of, I think, 4 or 5 positions that are funded by grants. There's one position that is funded by the general fund, located in the city manager's budget, which you approved last year or current year for the first time. And that's the coordinator position,
Reentry, right?
reentry coordinator.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize.
So on the salary projections printout, under city administration, is it broken out up under here, the positions that fall in that department?
There's one,
Just one,
yeah, just one.
which is what?
And I noticed it's not showing on there.
Reentry.
Reentry coordinator. So we'll have to fix that.
And then the others you said by grant?
Yes, they're funded by grants.
Good evening, Mr. Bullock.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Council. Ori Bullard, Director of the Reentry Center. And as you've noticed, we are under the city administration, so a lot of our funding comes from a different source, a different line item. But I have a breakout of all the city funding versus the county funding. Just to move through, the mission of the Reentry Center is to provide non-traditional support services to alleviate recidivism, increase public safety, and create productive citizens. Our organizational chart is as follows, with the citizens, mayor and the council, city administration, myself as the director, our reentry coordinator, Ron Dixon, and we have 3 case managers, Laura Bass, Monica Vesey, and Catherine Henry. Some of our goals are to begin implementation of the on-the-job training program, which is the SMART grant that was approved a few months back. To maintain program recidivism rates below 25%. We're currently at about 18 or 19%. Expand our program and reentry marketing throughout the local community. Increase our pre-release client engagement through family involvement. And also to research transitional housing / employment models to reduce blight and code enforcement concerns. And on the bottom left tab, you'll see our city-funded budget modifications. And we look to expand services to include quarterly reentry awareness nights and monthly family reunification activities. Also, we're looking to divide the director's salary over 2 funding sources. Currently, the director's salary comes exclusively from the Palm Beach County Public Safety Department. And so we're looking to break that down to a 50% split between the city and the county. If you look at the top right side, the city-funded operating budget, which is highlighted in yellow, our personnel and operating costs, we don't really have any capital costs. The personnel is for 2017-2018 was $60,635, and that was for the reentry coordinator position. That was one position that was solely funded through the city. And the projection is to split the director's salary over the 2, and so that would, for FY 2018-2019, that would increase that to $113,488. Our operating budget for 2017-2018 was $35,000, and that was essentially rent for the building at the Port Center. And so for fiscal year 2018-2019, we're looking to add a component that the county does not cover. And so if you look back over on the left for the quarterly reentry awareness nights and monthly family reunification activities, we're looking to provide funding for that. That's not covered through the county. And so that would be about a total of $10,000 for the year, and that would bring that total to $45,000, and that's the difference in that. If you look down to the bottom right-hand box, the county-funded operating budget for 2017-2018 was $208,495, and the operating budget was $30,004. That is all of our client services, money, transitional housing, mental health, any of those needs that the clients have. And so there's a change in that, and that's going to $246,261 for personnel and $65,927 for operating. And that would include the SMART grant that's coming on. So there will be a job coach that would be hired in that. That's the difference in that personnel. And the operating is basically the stipends for the clients that would be receiving those services, and for some on-the-job materials and supplies and operating. So that's the difference in that change. And that's your county-funded operating budget. Yes, any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Bullock?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize?
actually, I'm not sure if it's a question for him and city manager, if we can get a breakdown, so they could have a budget breakdown separately from the city manager.
You mean from the county versus city, or just the breakdown of those personnel and operating expenses? Okay.
For the city as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything further from the council? Thank you, Mr. Bullock.
Thank you.
Youth empowerment? That's showing up on page 13.
And I'll have to provide you the breakdown for youth empowerment also.
Right.
It's going to show.
Right now, it shows as a transfer from the general fund of $310,000, and that's on page 13. And that $310,000 will be transferred over to the Youth Empowerment Operating Fund. Okay. Okay.
Am I calling?
Okay.
Good evening. Valerie Grimsley, Program Director for Youth Empowerment.
Good evening.
We are funded through two different sources, and then we receive in-kind services through two additional sources that are not listed on here. But for the budget modifications for the 2018-2019 budget year, our intent is to expand youth empowerment to provide more family and community services. And this will align us with the Palm Beach County Youth Master Plan, which has all different types of components to serve the community and the family. So it will allow us to begin to offer youth and family on-site mental health counseling through the psychological department at the county, which will be no additional cost to the city. It will also allow us to offer those services to our kids as well, whether they are participants of youth empowerment or not, or of our age or not. So we'll be able to open up that scope. We'll also be increasing career education opportunities for youth and families in the field of construction trades, technology, and vocational careers. And these are certifiable trades. And we are looking to formulate a private partnership to provide at-risk youth and young adults with an additional option to receive a standardized diploma. Right now, we're just working primarily with adult and community education to provide a GED or a Florida State diploma. To form this private partnership will give us a secondary option where if our youth are not succeeding in high school, they'll be able to come into our center and actually work on credit recovery in-house and get a standardized diploma through a private partnership. So we've been having some conversations with two different partners about that and seeing what the cost would be. Those are our modifications. If you go to your right, the top right, the city operating budget, currently we're operating under $310,000. $188,000 of that is our personnel costs, and that's for 2 full-time employees. So that covers insurance, that covers retirement, that covers everything. And we're asking for the same thing going forward in 2018, 2019. Our operating budget right now is $122,000, and that covers our vans, that covers our building expenses, that covers some programs that the county doesn't cover that we know that our kids still need. And we're able to do some family engagement with those dollars. Going forward, we're asking for $160,000, and that will give us an opportunity to expand our pre-apprenticeship program, which is a construction program for youth ages 16 to 19 that have disconnected from the school district. This year we're going up to serving 25 kids. Last year we served 12. Our county-funded operating budget, which is at your bottom left, we receive $180,000. The $100,000 is just for programming. $80,000 is for the actual summer internship program that we do and 2 part-time staff that the county actually covers. The $80,000 come from Children's Services Council, so that's why you see it listed differently. The $100,000 comes from Palm Beach County Youth Services. And moving forward into 2019, our goals are to do an Empowerment Community Advisory Board. We need this because we don't have all the answers. So having those partners around the table will allow us to get some feedback, to do some planning, to do some research on some grants some innovative programs, as well as to come up with some innovative evidence-based programming that we can use here in the city. We want to secure a MOU with the National Best Practices Youth Build Program, which will enhance our pre-apprenticeship program. Currently, right now, we're the only youth empowerment, and we're the only after-school program that actually has a pre-apprenticeship program that works directly with young men. We would like to do some research on evidence-based leadership programs. We feel like that is ultimate with our kids, to actually instill some leadership programming that's more evidence-based, which will also open us up to grants. We want to establish a partnership with technology provider to increase youth opportunities in drone STEM programs and technology. We have some ACE Plus certification students right now. Last year, through the summer internship program, 2 of our kids that worked with IT took the A Plus certification test. And again, going back to creating those partnerships, we've already identified two partners, which is the Big Giant and McGraw-Hill, that we'd like to have a discussion with to actually provide those standardized diplomas through the private partnerships. Creating a family service component to YEP will complement the county's master plan, which will open us up to some additional dollars. Right now, we can only capture the youth empowerment dollars and not the other dollars because we don't have those components attached to youth empowerment. And then moving forward, we'd like to consider coming back to you to change the name. I know that was something that was discussed about a year ago. We won't be changing youth empowerment's name. Youth empowerment would just become a DBA for us. But if we're going to talk about serving families and community, youth empowerment is not the name that we want to put out there to actually serve community. We want to keep that to serve our kids, but we want to make something that's more comfortable for parents or community to walk through the door and know that they have a place in our center. So we'll come back to you with 3 names, and you can sort of discuss it and see where we can go with that. And then that will open us up to being more of a full-service community center instead of just a youth empowerment center that serves teenagers.
Okay.
If there's any questions?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Anderson, you recognize?
it's more so for up here. With the youth council, where is that in the budget? Have we had,
We were looking at law enforcement trust dollars.
okay, right.
We
Okay.
haven't had that meeting, Chief Madden.
Okay. Okay. That's it for me.
Any other questions from the council? Thank you, Ms. Grimsley. Public Works.
Madam Chair, really quick, before Ms. Grimsley go.
I think we got
Madam Chair?
one, Councilman Davis, you recognize?
No, I just thought about it, I had a question from Ms. Grimsley.
Ms. Grimsley.
Are there any other concerns, there may be some needs coming down the line that we might need to start looking out for, other than the name change of of our programming from youth empowerment to community empowerment, whatever that name may be? Are there any other things we might, as we move further down the line, get closer to maybe mid-year budget, there's some things we need to start planning to think about? There may be some more needs that we must start visioning down the future that may not be on here at this time.
We're going to need an expansion of space, but that's something that I've already spoken with the city manager as well as Mr. Blankenship and Mr. Horton. We're all working on that, and we'll be meeting to see how we can accommodate.
Okay. Thank you.
Public Works begins 48. $48, $49, $50, $51. I thought it was a 53. Okay. Okay, stormwater is in section 3, page 1. And you will be able to find fleet in section 8, page 1. Yes. Got it? Stormwater, tab 3, page 1, fleet, tab 8, page 1. Good evening, Mr. Bailey.
Good evening, council, city manager. As you all are very familiar, Public Works is comprised of 5 primary divisions: the administration and engineering, fleet services, property maintenance, streets and grounds, and stormwater. Budget modification in front of you are only 2 things: salary adjustments based on the new negotiations with the union contracts, and the information technology assessment from the consolidation of information technologies. In the box on your right, you will see that the 5 divisions that comprise Public Works have a FY17 budget of $10.1 million and a proposed FY18 budget of $10.8 million in total, for a 7% aggregate increase. Our personnel costs are going from $3.4 million to $3.6 for an 8.25% increase. Information technology is going from $136 to $273 for a 102% increase. And our operating expenses go from $6.1 to $6.4 million for a 4.8% increase. Capital costs remain flat at $450,000, and these are the funds with which we operate the vehicle replacement program, where we buy all of the city vehicles from that fund set. Goals for FY19 remain relatively consistent from FY18: to maintain a safe and efficient transportation network. As you know, we coordinate with the DOT, Palm Beach County, and we administer the roads inside the city through the engineering department. I've been up a number of times in the last 6 months for the $40 million Phase 1 road program and the construction that is going on, funded by the council, and we will be wrapping that up in the next 12 to 18 months with the projects that are currently under construction. And lastly, we have had many conversations about the city beautification program, and the implementation of aspects of the city's beautification program are a goal for Public Works for the upcoming year. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Any questions for Public Works?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize.
Ms. Hoskins, can we get a copy of all of the slides that the departments are showing? And then and I may have just forgotten from last night, with the information technology services being added to each department, IT does not have their own budget anymore? Everything is just running through each department?
No, they have their own budget. They are under tab,
But that's separate from...
they're under a separate tab.
But that's still separate. Before now, it was all lumped in together. It was when it wasn't in the departments, it would have been under the IT budget?
Right, it was under the general fund, and we didn't do transfers. Now they're treated as an internal service fund, sort of like an enterprise fund, but not making money. So each department, based on their services, those funds for IT are transferred over to a separate fund to IT, and then they run the operations out of there.
Okay, and you said the benefit in doing it that way was what?
So we would have a running total of the cost of what it costs to run IT, to provide the IT services.
We wouldn't know that coming through IT?
No, because, you know, everybody, I believe, was buying their own individual computers, procuring their own services, but now it's all being ran through IT. And if that's not correct, then,
So they were purchasing it themselves, but not using the funds from IT?
well,
IT?
they would put it in a, you know, it would be mixed up in an operating account within the individual budgets, not, transferred over to IT, and that way you have a running total of the cost.
Okay.
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
But just a quick question about, on page 50, the water utilities went from actual 2016, 31,000 to actual 2017, 40,000, up to 2018 budgeted 160,000. Just wondering if your water meters were as sticky as the ones out on,
They are taking care of how many how many signs did we add in the last couple of years?
We added 7 Welcome to Riviera Beach signs, and then 23 of the smaller Inlet City, Monroe Heights, smaller community signs last year.
Okay, and then the beautification and the medians, that's been there for I-95, Old Dixie, that you
Yes,
water.
most of your major medians, the easy way to sort of explain it, if you see anything but green in any of the landscaping, it's going to take a lot of water. Color takes a lot of water, so most of the colorful plants in the medians are water intensive. So most of the water that Public Works utilizes is for the trees in the medians throughout the city.
same thing with the utilities, that expense went up quite considerably as well, so that's part of maintaining those medians. Went up from 4,828 to 17,000.
And I think that's the, solid waste assessment that we have to pay?
Could you refer, which line item are you on?
Again, page 50, right below the water,
Utilities, other.
Other.
I can look it up.
Utilities, other.
Yeah, from the 2017 actual at 4,008 to the 2018 adopted at 17,000.
Speaking of those community signs, where is the lighting in the budget for that, or what?
That'd be a capital.
It's gonna
Those are
fall
capital
under
sheets, and
capital?
that'll be in the capital discussion.
Okay. Chair Pro Tem, you recognize.
Mr. Bailey, you said the entryway signs to the city and the smaller Monroe Heights signs. You meant the smaller neighborhood signs, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that every community know that they had neighborhood signs, not just Monroe Heights.
Yes, ma'am.
He came back and said community. Are there any other questions beyond the
Did you find it?
identification of the 17,000 for the utilities other?
You're on page 50,
That's on
for
page
Public Works Admin, or you're in one of the other division?
It's under
Property
property
maintenance.
maintenance.
Okay, I'm in Public Works Admin.
So we had to pay, every year, we are required to pay a solid waste assessment. It's a governmental assessment charged to all municipalities, and that's part of the increase. Looks like it went from,
This is why it's important for us to be able to clearly identify those items so that we don't have to go back and search, and there is a definition for what those costs and charges are associated with. We talked about that last night. We just want to reiterate that. Are there any other questions coming from council?
One other question.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize?
Mr. Bailey, the vacancies in your department, are you seeking to fill those readily now so that we can be at full complement to service the city, to clean the city and what have you?
Yes, ma'am, we're moving very aggressively to fill all vacancies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
you going to do SMU, or we're done? Stormwater?
Continue.
Oh.
You're done with Public Works
Yeah,
Administration.
stormwater was in the 5 divisions and included in
Oh,
my
okay.
presentation.
Yeah, he added them all together.
He did everything all inclusive.
Oh, one
Yeah.
other question.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize.
The stormwater, when we talk about stormwater, we're including the alleyways. Have we transferred those funds to Public Works so that we can hire the people, or are they going to stay with the utility division?
I believe that's a question for the manager.
We are working out the details of that. Right now, utilities they are assisting us, and we're still working out the details of that particular changeover.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bailey, and the 10 million that you reported, was it, can you go back to your slide? Were your costs all inclusive of all of the divisions?
Yeah,
Yes.
including
Okay. Were there
stormwater.
any other questions for stormwater or for any of the other departments?
Just stormwater,
You have a,
stormwater question.
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
What are the professional services that went from 151,000 in 2016, now at 711,000 in stormwater? I'm sorry?
I may have to yield to Randy, because that is a,
Stormwater.
Professional services.
Did it have to do with the bonds or the mass?
Yeah,
Done a lot of work since then.
you're looking at 2016, which is an actual expense.
Right, and 2017 is an
And
actual as well. I just
2017
wondered
is an
what-
actual.
What was the,
Then 18 and 19, obviously, are budgeted numbers. I-
Or administrative fees?
Yeah, my guess is, Terrence, and maybe you have a better recollection of this, the bonds came in 16 for stormwater. Did you have any charges that you ran through at
no,
that
the road-
point?
the road projects didn't
No,
start until
okay.
a little later.
Okay.
That's
I
the
would-
administrative fees.
Oh, it's the administrative fees?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the administrative
It's
fees
administrative.
based on
Okay,
cost
gotcha.
allocation
Thank you.
plan.
somebody
We've gotta
offline
look
will
at-
explain
we've gotta
that to
look at
me.
report that she sent us, the cost allocation
Illustrated
plan,
in
so that we
English.
could see that.
And if I can, just real quick, if you can look at page 13, because this answers actually the other question. 13 is the general admin budget.
One.
We used to pay for all of the utilities at City Hall under the general administration, and that's why those dollars have actually been, so if you look at 18 and 19 budget on page 13, for the utilities, there's no budget there. They've been moved over to Public Works.
They should,
Thank you.
that's where
That
they
helps.
should.
These are all taken out of the 2018 budget. They're no longer in here, they've been moved out to.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize?
under the stormwater expenses, what is the professional services, medical and dental?
That would be for any physicals, when the pre-employment physical. So before we hire, we have to take them to Concentra and all of that to do the physicals.
I didn't see that on the other ones.
But you'll notice that hasn't been in existence in about 2 or 3 fiscal years. That's only F16. We don't
No,
have
it's-
those.
It's on here.
There's a $250.
It's on here, 250.
Yeah.
$50 is budgeted.
Oh, Randy
Huh?
mentioned, because we're still enterprise, it's a carryover, but
That's
I
why
think
it
process is-
has it and the other departments
Yes.
don't have it.
Right.
The rest of them are all paid out of the human resource budget in the general fund.
So this one, what's the reason for this one staying? You said
Well,
'cause
again,
the enter-
because they're an enterprise fund, they cover their own costs, so.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
Members of the council, it's now 8:30. It's now 8:30. You all discussed going back over. Are you good with continuing on,
I am.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman?
I'm wondering,
Perkins?
do we have utilities left? Could we do utilities as part of a utilities meeting coming up?
But that's, the-
That-
Do we have a
oh, not
time?
until the
that was
20th.
capital,
That's the same day of Capitol.
unless you all want to schedule another date, I don't know.
And he's
Full
indicating
agenda.
that we have a full agenda on that day, so we
I'm
will not be
okay
able
with
to do that.
Continuing.
Are you,
What do
are
we
you
have
going?
left? Lost my.
You're saying, okay.
Utility, legislative,
Utilities,
procurement,
there's
executive.
utilities, procurement, legislative, executive administration, and general administration is remaining.
But, Madam Chair, when
Chair-
When would
Councilwoman.
we, what are our deadlines? What timelines
What-
are we working with here?
We have to post the agenda before September 6th, so if you back into that,
I mean, because
I mean, we have the week of, well, next week, the week of the 20th, the week of the 27th, well, the 28th or 29th is when we have to post the agenda to Novus. So you have, I don't know, the week of the 20th, if you all want to look at that week, if you're available.
Well, I just don't want to wait
Let's-
until,
Let's just continue.
yeah.
No, it's, if you have to go, we talked about you leaving, but we can continue. I'm not pressed
I'm
to
okay.
discontinue. So, balance of council? Mr. Davis?
Hang around for a little while. We'll be back tomorrow.
Well, we're not covering this tomorrow, are we?
No, oh, we,
CRA.
At this
Oh, you
pace, I
talking about
believe,
CRA.
you know, we should be.
CRA, we'll be fine. Alrighty, utility special district, section 2, page
What's
1.
Needs the utilities.
Okay.
Actually, I'm not staying up so late tonight. Keep going. This is not traditional.
Ready?
you ready?
Utilities, section 2, page 1.
I will try and be as fast as possible, Madam Chair, members of council and city manager. Here to cover the utility portion. I'm sorry.
Where?
Okay.
Page, section 2, page 1.
What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong?
Tab 2.
There you go. Okay. All right. This is our org chart. The present makeup of the district is made up of 59 positions, to include the executive director position. Here we're showing that we answer to the citizens, the board members. We have an indirect dash line. It doesn't show very clearly here, to the city manager, then the executive director. There are 3 departments under the executive director that includes administration, the water plant, and distribution and collections. Presently, our budget for FY18 is $26,673,179. That covers the cost of the 59 positions, operating 52 lift stations, 27 wellheads, 3 repump stations, 4 tanks throughout the area, covering not only the corporate limits of the city of Riviera Beach, but several adjoining areas around the city, with a customer base of about 13,500 meters, and about 39,000 citizens within the community. For FY19, the budget as presented would have an increase of 3.21%. bringing it to a total of $27,529,921. Personal services, I know I show 77 here. That's a little premature, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we have been talking to the board of the district about the need to add 6 more operator positions. And so the increase in the personal services or the personnel would include that amount, and our operating costs would go up by 1.98%. For a total of the $27,529,000. Talking about the modifications to the budget, in addition to the 6 positions that I've been talking to the board about on numerous occasions, we also have seen the need to identify or add an additional engineering tech position for all of the markings whenever contractors or even citizens are needing underground utilities marked. That includes the facilities of the utility district for water and wastewater. We have one person that does that for the entire city, and it's been demonstrated it is extremely difficult to keep up and keep ahead so that the contractors can move forward with their work. So we're recommending that an additional engineer tech be added to the engineering group to help facilitate that. In addition to that, we are recommending that elements from the finance department be moved over to the utility district and placed under the utility district. That includes 11 positions, which includes the customer service employees. Those are the employees that would go out presently to ride the city to pick up the signals from the meters that we have in place right now, along with the telephone personnel and the supervisors that make up 11 positions. We think that would, bringing it under the district, would give more cohesiveness to how we serve the citizens of the community as a whole, and help to facilitate the management and the maintenance of the metering systems that we have throughout the city. As indicated here on our sheet, our goal will be to hold more community outreach meetings as we move forward for things that we're planning in the community, and to build relationships with the public school system to help educate the entire citizenry, starting with the students that live within our corporate limits. Madam Chair, members of council, that completes my presentation. Open to your questions.
Question?
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Botel,
Has
you
there been a
recognize.
conversation with the finance department about moving 11 customer service employees from the finance department to the utility?
These, if you look at your cost allocation, these 11 people are paid 100% out of the district right now through the cost allocation. These are customer service reps that take care of the metering and any customer service related issues relating to water and
My question
wastewater.
was, has there been a conversation? No,
There
regardless
has
of having
been conversations since my first week on the job.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
You recognize.
Mr. Horton, physically, the personnel will stay where they are?
Temporarily, we are in the process of securing a modular building. In the budget, there was monies to accommodate modifying or expanding the existing administrative facilities. I've chosen to forego that so that those dollars could go to more hardcore needs that we have in the infrastructure of the water plant, the distribution system, the collection systems, the well fields. So instead of spending $5 to $6 million on a building, we're looking at erecting a modular facility that will cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000, and thereby being able to direct those funds to other needed things within the utility.
Mr. Horton, why is there a physical need to move the personnel from where they are? Why can't they stay where they are? I can understand what you're saying about continuity and the fact that they're already being paid out of the utility district budget. But what will the difference be because they're moved physically over in a modular building when, let me say this, while modular buildings are really advancing, why is there a need to move those persons out of a structure where they're comfortable, where it's, I see there has been some adjustments in there, and I really want to know that, because I can't imagine staff being ready to move from where they are into a modular building.
At present, with the existing staffing that we have in the utility, in the maintenance building, we're overcrowded right now in the maintenance building. So even if we weren't going to move the 11 from finance to the utility, we would still need to erect a modular building to accommodate the space needs that we have. In talking with finance, it was felt that if we were to assume the responsibility of these people, it would be best to have them physically moved to the utility, and this is the only way I can see to accommodate that. But could they function and still be under the utility district? I think they could.
And let me press you on this a little bit more. I heard what you said, and you're thinking to bring on 11 more new people at some point.
7 more.
7 more.
Yes.
People. At some point, I imagine there would have to be space for those 7 people. But I still say to you today that if you were to go there and just deal with the people that you have there now, that it would not be, I don't think it would be a good idea for morale or just for, health-wise to try to put them in the modular building. You see what happened with your IT modular building, and I just don't think that we're kind of fit for modular buildings here with all of our mildew, our hurricanes, and different. You have a supervisor over there, Mrs. Kemp, so it's not like they're over there unattended and everybody's, running wild with no supervision over there. I think we really need to discuss this more and talk about it a little more before moving those people.
Understand, Madam. One of the things I would like to point out, if I may, with the 7 additional positions, 6 of those are going to be plant operators. So these are plant operators that will be on the 24-hour shift at the water plant. So those folks would not be in the modular building, but will help to augment the need on the shifts. I have 2 shifts primarily, the evening and the graveyard shift, that has only 1 person on it, and it's a dangerous situation. We've had a situation where we've had an employee get hurt on the job on the graveyard shift. He was the only one on, and it could have been worse. And these people, the water plant operators, are not only required to operate the water plant, they have to also operate the 27 wellheads that we have, and not all of them can be controlled automatically. They have to go out to the field to do it. They also are monitoring the SCADA system that watches all of the facilities, both water and wastewater, 24/7. And so it's a very involved and in-depth operation that one cannot be done effectively by one person. And so after evaluating and looking at it, we think that adding 6 additional positions will help to cover that need and address any emergencies that will come up. And should someone get hurt, it could be addressed quickly, as opposed to them getting hurt and having to wait 2 or 3 hours before their relief comes. And these people work 10-hour shifts, so 12, 10-hour shifts. So I just don't want to keep the operators in an unsafe situation. And so that's why those 6 positions are being requested. And then, of course, with the engineering tech, we're falling behind seriously on meeting contractor requirements for markings.
So Mr. Horton, you own, so you have, so this is 6 or 7 positions that you're requesting?
It's 6 plant operator positions.
Okay.
And then 1 engineering tech position.
So none of those people will be over here anyway? They'll all be over with you, right?
In the modular building?
No, I'm talking about in the building.
Oh, here in this building?
Right.
None of those folks will be in this building. The 11 positions that we're talking about moving from finance, in that group, there are 5 field personnel, and then the rest of them are staff personnel that deals with customers here in the building.
Okay, so the people that you were referring to, the plant operators, they were never going to be over on this side. They were going to be over there. And the people that are already stationed and placed here in this building, they're not really being affected by, you're not running out of space because of the additional bodies that you're requesting.
No, we were making additional space of it. Since we were going to do a modular building for the collection and distribution group, which is already overcrowded in the maintenance building, I was going to have to do that anyway. And now that we're talking about the possibility of moving all of customer service under the umbrella of the district, we went ahead and we are moving forward to make accommodations to accommodate them as well. So the modular building would take care of collections, distribution, and customer service.
Okay, I'll just say, for me, since you're expanding collections and distributions, I can see them in a modular building out there. But I think our 11 people that are here are fine here. So we'll just leave it at that, and we can discuss it further.
Madam Chair? Is there something not working with the 11 people remaining here? What productivity-wise, or what's the difference?
There have been challenges and conflicts in approaches in dealing with issues relating to the utility, metering, hydrant meters, those types of things. Being under one head, particularly since they're paid 100% by the utility, it makes sense to place them under the utility umbrella. And it just provides for consistency in direction and approach. Many times when people have issues from a customer service perspective relating to the utility, they will come to the utility as opposed to coming to City Hall. I don't like sending citizenry or customers back and forth, so what we do many times is make the call and try to resolve the issues via phone call. Same scenario would occur if they were to come to City Hall. The idea was that we would place a phone in the lobby, and they would be able to call to the utility if there's a utility-related issue. The billing, paying of bills would still be here in City Hall. The cashiers would still be here in City Hall.
So billing will stay here, and you want the 11 people over there, and you said the
customer service
customer service
group,
too?
yes.
What are we trying to do? Are we trying to break off and do our own thing with the utility district? You're why do you want to bring all that over? I understand what you're saying about consistency, but it sounds like you're building up that to almost operate independent from, like, maybe CRA.
Well, Madam Councilwoman, it is an enterprise fund. And I have not talked to the board about this, but as you look at the functionality of a utility, it makes sense to have all of the components of the utility so it could work holistically and build some efficiencies into it as you move forward. So at some point, if the board chose to make it an independent as opposed to a dependent district, I think that would be a great move. That's not what I'm proposing tonight, but just from a conversational perspective, that would make a great move.
Is that how the other municipalities have that?
There are many, not every, but there are many communities in Florida and throughout the country where the utilities will be a separate and independent group. When I ran Broward County's, at the time it was called the Office of Environmental Services, I had everything within the utility to include my own finance director. The billing and collections was all done within the utility.
And what's the benefits of having all of that separate?
It's just, what is the benefit of having it separate?
Yeah, put over there with you.
Oh, you mean to have it together? It makes it holistic, and you're under one leadership to provide consistency in meeting the needs of the customer. You're focused on the needs of the customer, and you're able to do it very transparently and very efficiently when you do it that way.
Ms. Hoskins, do you know if that ever, conversation ever came up like that ever in the past, all the years that it's been operating this way? What's the?
No, I guess 5, 6 years ago, the customer service piece was under utilities. And then the billing and the manager and the supervisor was under finance, but the meter readers were under billing. And I think that was maybe 5 years ago.
Okay. I mean, I know there's been some controversy with these 11 people moving moving from finance over to the utility district. I understand that it would definitely impact morale in a negative way if they're moved back over to the utility district. I don't support doing that right now, because I would like to find out a little more about what direction we're going into with bringing all of the people back over to utility district and possibly breaking off as an independent organization, because I could tell that's where we're headed, but I would like to know a little more about that and what's the motive behind it. So I'm not in support of that right now. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Councilman Davis, you recognize.
I got a question for Mr. Sherman. What year did we transfer? Is that 2014, if I stand correct?
It would have been October 1st of 14, yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So during the discussion at that time, these employees were already a part of the district, correct? Over there.
The field crew was
Field
part
crew
of the
that we discussed.
The billing and customer service was always part of finance.
Correct. The field crew.
The field crew.
When it came before this board.
Yep.
Could you tell and help my colleagues understand what was going on at that time for that request?
What was happening at that time is, of course, you have the cashiers and you had customer service dealing with the customers. And by not controlling the field crew, you know, it was hard to tell the customer what type of customer service they were going to get. We could put in work orders, but then if the field crew on the other side didn't pick up the the work orders or follow through on the work orders, of course, the person that got lost was the customer. The crew, at that point, you know, let other judges as well, but I don't think was really being pushed and supervised
That's what I wanted
to
to hear.
meet those
Yeah.
issues. So when we brought them over,
That's
and again, we brought them over, then we had that cohesive group on this side, where, again, a cashier could talk to a customer at the window, put in a work order, we could get on the radio, we could, you know, direct somebody to, you need to go right now. And that's what was missing,
But I
missing
think,
before.
thank you, and I appreciate that, because the piece that I wanted to hear come from you, so that all my colleagues can hear what was stated, is that there was some issues with the customers and their supervision on the other side. And it became a problem, and Mr. Sherman assisted with the transition of bringing them over so we can make sure that we had that oversight at that time under the previous leadership. Now, there's some things that I'm understanding that as we still go further into the discussion, there'll be some more information that will allow us to dabble in more of this dialogue of what's going on. But thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize.
Definitely, I'm not against the division coming under the utility. I'm only speaking about the physical piece of it, because they have Mrs. Kemp there as a consummate supervisor for customer service. The gentleman in the street and the ladies at the window are there working together, and Mrs. Kemp is supervising them. So please note, my concern is not it's not them coming under the utility department. It's just the concern of moving them into a modular unit, and I think that's the piece that needs to be flushed out a little more. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for utilities? I'm not opposed to bring it all in-house. I do believe we need to flesh out physical move, but bring it all for continuity of service and operation, I have no problem with that. Any further questions for utilities? Thank you. We are now on to procurement.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize?
are we doing IT tonight? What, did you list that?
Yes.
That's at
Did
the-
not. It was, it's being brought over. Remember, we were bringing it over last night. They did not
Is
present.
at the end of, after the executive?
Yes.
After general administration, yes. That's fine. Oh, I'm sorry. We are on page 17.
Yeah, she done spoiled us now by giving us the page numbers, so now we gotta ask.
Page 17. And if you're going into the big book, we're under tab 8.
Good evening, Council, Good evening, Council, Madam Manager. Ricky Little, Interim Director of Procurement.
Good evening.
The organization chart that you see in front of you, of course, covers citizens, mayor and council, city manager, the Director of Procurement, the senior procurement specialists and the buyers, along with the contract administrator and the procurement assistant. Those are the positions that are actually located in the department, which totals a 16 membership. We currently have a team of 4, so we're 2 people short. The last slide covers what's actually happening. The budget modification, it says no budget changes, but of course it takes into consideration the adjustment that we should incur for the FY19, providing there is one. And if you look at the operating budget for FY17 or 16, 17, 18, it was at $409,138. FY18 and 19 was $453.17, and the operating expenses for FY17 was $175,232, and for FY18 18 and 19, it went down to 125. The reason it went down was because we lost a position that was in the department, that actually goes over to the city manager's area now, which was the small business coordinator. The FY19 goals are, of course, is to get as many people in the department certified as possible, develop and maintain procurement contracts throughout the city, and provide continuous training to the employees. That's my brief presentation. I'm available for questions.
Chair Pro Tem Erica Ness.
One of the goals I would like to see in the procurement department is to be able to put in a piece that creates local and equity participation. We have an ordinance that isn't conducive to the community that we serve. We were working on it several times to increase equity participation, and I think that that needs to be a priority and a viable goal. Right now, you know, we have, what, $40 million almost in street projects with no, with very little local participation. So I think that if that should be a priority for us to, as a city. We have a large minority and local population, and I think it's, you know, incumbent upon us to try to increase the professional and business services to be provided by some of our local participants.
To address that issue, Pro Tem, every solicitation that we put on the street, we put out for every public entity to actually look at. We do reach out to certain vendors, but it kind of gets us behind the curveball when we do that, because that gives other vendors the opportunity to say, well, you didn't call me about this particular solicitation. So we encourage everybody to visit the city's website to see what's available, and also visit DemandStar to see what's available. And if they're not bidding,
okay, well, I really didn't want us to get this deep into that. So with that comment, with you just saying that, that's saying to me that there's no desire, no intent to go to a local or equity participation level, that we won't do more to expand the 3, 5, or 12% that we're spending with local and minority businesses. Again, and I know, just being a director, that is not your ultimate say-so. I think that it's incumbent upon this council, this board, to create one, to have the political will, and two, to bring it to the department heads to say, this is what we want to do. So with the local ordinance, our procurement policy, and the sections that are in there that will give us an opportunity to address that, if that is the desire of this board, to increase the local and minority participation, we sure, and I agree with you. Our problem is this: we have to have that desire and that will up here before we can mandate that staff has that will. Because, as you said, if local and minority vendors are interested in bidding, they need to go to DemandStar and look at it like everybody else. But there is no way in the world that we can believe that there is equity participation or opportunity or the availability for them to participate. So, but I'm glad that you explained it. So that way, between the city manager and the body up here, we know what we have to do. There has to be a political will first and foremost to increase local and minority participation.
I agree with that, Councilwoman.
Right, because we surely, if we don't mandate it up here, y'all not gonna execute it down there, and I like that.
Well, let me just say, there is a political will, but before we embark upon such requirements, the first thing that has to happen is that disparity study. We're going to have to commission a disparity study so that there is documentation. You can do local, but you cannot do race-conscious programs absent of a study. So I would then suggest that we do that. We can have local goals that are race and gender neutral at this particular point, but in order to get to race conscious, we have to commission a study. And so that's going to take dollars. We're going to need to identify the dollars that would be able to support that. We have to look at the document to define and be clear on what our local is, because we're going to have local to Riviera Beach, we're going to have local to Palm Beach County, we're going to have local to whatever geographic market that we're in, because what a study will show you is where we spend the bulk of our dollars, and that's going to determine our geographic market, and then we would then be able to say, this is where the largest portion of our dollars are spent, this is what the program will be, this is the area that it will encompass, and how we get to equity. So the study is going to be what we need, Chair Pro Tem, in order to get to the equity when we talk about race-conscious programs. And I have the political will to make sure that there is an equitable distribution of contracts to our local vendors, to our women-owned businesses, to the minority businesses, because we know historically that there has been a deficit and a disparity in the issuance of those contracts. So I just want us to operate in a way that is not going to cause harm to the city, but I want us to be able to, I want to support, and I do support, what you are suggesting, Chair Pro Tem, as it relates to the inclusion and the equity of local minority businesses. But we have to have that document in order to support it. And then I needed to also ask, what I didn't see, do you use NIGP or NAICS codes?
We do. We use that service as
Which
part of
one do we use?
NIGP codes.
We use NIGP codes.
Correct.
So where in your budget is the payment for the subscription, and
It's part of the operating cost for
it's
our
part of
department.
your operating costs?
It is.
So when vendors go to register, are they registering online now?
They are registering online now. We also still take paper copies and upload them, or do the registration ourselves in the system. But when we go to Tyler, that will all change.
What will change?
They was-
The method in which we register?
Correct.
So it's going to strictly be electronic?
It will strictly be electronic.
Okay. I believe I heard, did I hear you, Councilman Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
You're recognized.
I just want to piggyback off of what you stated. You know, we discussed this approximately 2 years ago about the disparity study. I think it's now time for us to actually take some form of a immediate discussion, and while we're at the budget cycle, to consider implementing some funds on what's there to move in that direction. And I think it's very important that we go ahead and do that, because until we do that, we're going to continue to have this conversation over and over again. And I do support the vice chair on what she's stating about local. We understand when you ride through the community and to watch the home ownership depreciate in this community, plays a major role with this. And the only way we can change that is put our community in position with the information and really put the policies in place to show what the lack is. And once that study does that, and we can move aggressively to change Riviera Beach in the direction that we've all have made that commitment to. But and I think now is the time to start considering that during this budget cycle.
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize.
Couple things to that end. One, there's a lot of things that any municipality can do to increase equity without the disparity study. I'm really not talking about race-based procurement. What I'm saying to you is, just for an example's sake, we don't even have to talk about race. All we have to talk about 3344 to start distributing equity. It's hard for me to sit up and see us spend the amount of money we spend and not spend it more an equitable distribution of the resources that we have. Now, for a disparity study, for what for our purpose and for our end game, and for us to change the way that we do business, I don't think that is the answer. You can get that study done, you can have that study, and it's going to be like 90% of the other studies that we have. They're going to sit there. They're going to be bound, and they're going to sit there if we don't have the mindset to execute that document that we find. We already know without a $200,000 a study that we aren't spending monies that we can with the people that are qualified, able, and ready to do business in the city of Riviera Beach. And I'm not saying, Mr. Littleton, I really want you to know this piece. I'm not saying because you don't want to do business with the minority population. I'm saying that we're just not doing it because we don't have the vehicle in place. We can't have the mindset or the desire to say, hey, y'all better go to Demand Star, Palm Beach Post, come look on the wall. We got to make an extra effort because we have a responsibility to those persons that are spending their money through tax, ad valorem tax and what have you in this community. A disparity study, it's fine on its face. It's fine for what it's for. I'm not just talking, I don't have to talk about race. You know why I don't have to talk about race? Because 90% of the people in this town are minority vendors. So I don't really have to go that way to spend the dollars. We have to have a political, I'm not saying that I want to spend, I'll get that, thank you. Just with black people or women or anything like that. I'm just saying it's shameful and it's a disgrace on so many different levels that people come from outside to extract all the monies from our city. We don't even have anything in place to have a discussion with them about hiring local people once they get $1 million contract. You know, nothing to say, okay, you said, so see, let me tell you this. This is what I learned about what that we can do. We should have a document within the document, so when those people get those contracts, you'll already know who their subs are going to be. That's legal. See, those are the type of things that I'm talking about that we could do. You could know who all their subs going to be because they're going to all tell you, we're going to make a good faith effort to hire local people. They're going to hire their friends, the people that they did the last job with. So I'm just saying that there's things that we need to do, and I'm glad that my colleagues have the political will to do it. So I think that we're going to be able to do it. We're going to be able to spend more money with the people in Riviera Beach.
Let the record reflect that the mayor is on the dais.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize.
for the disparity study, where would we take the funds from for that? Or where would we anticipate taking the funds for the disparity study?
It would have to come from city administration, from an overall professional services contract.
Or a different fund, or maybe?
Perhaps a different fund. We have to research. We have to research the fund availability, but we also would need to determine the parameters of a study so that we could understand what the actual cost would be, because studies can range anywhere from $75,000 based on the information and the time frame that you go, all the way upwards of millions. But I don't believe that the city, based on our size, that we have to go that far. We want to take a look at 5 years of spending, and we want to be able to identify the areas where there has been recognizable disparity and to be able to put a program of equal business opportunity in place so that we don't run this course. But I wanted to just make a point as it related to the indication of subcontractors. We have schedules that are attached to our documents. Schedule 1 tells us who the subcontractor is going to be. Schedule 2 tells us what the work is going to be performed. As a part of certification, if you are utilizing the certification to offer some sort of benefit, then that is your cross-check for certifying businesses and understanding what they are certified to perform. That's key. So there are some things that we need to do as a procurement department as it relates to our solicitations and our certification and how we handle that. I understand that the majority of the people in our community are minority, but we have to think about the allocation of dollars and the request for demand. And I'm just simply saying that when we put those measures in place, whatever those directives are as it relates to local hire, as it relates to subcontracting, all of that has to be done in a way that it is not specific. And that's just the reality of it. I hear your heart. I hear your position. I just want us to know that that's what I do on the other side of my life. And we are tasked with where there are specifics, there has to be that proof. And where we're doing things that are not, we can put those measures in place. We just have to do it and put it in our language and be ready to hold them fast. Because you can say good faith effort, but what does good faith efforts really mean? And if we don't put teeth into good faith efforts and make them provide us with, exactly. And that's why I'm saying the things that we can do now, we can do them in a race and gender neutral capacity that will eventually just spill over into a race and gender conscious program. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so, back to the question, do we need to identify some funds in this budget cycle?
And back to the answer, I said that the city manager would have to identify this funding source. So we need to first let her look within her administrative budget to see where those dollars can come from. And then,
No, I mean, do you have something to add to it?
No, so we would have to go out for RFP for this, right? So you want to do this for FY19, and we would have to develop a scope of services
Right.
and how.
There's no need to reinvent the
Right,
wheel. We have
okay,
it. The City of
okay.
West Palm had it. Solid
Okay.
Waste Authority had it. So we can pull from those. And then you have individuals that have done it all the way up the coast of Florida. So we can pull Orlando. We need to look at cities that are comparable in size to us in order to be able to determine what the RFP should look like. And then that will help us understand what the cost is based on the research that we can do.
And we need to look at what we want, what we're actually the end game, what's the product that we would like to see for ourselves as a city, because and I agree that would give us a good framework. But I think as we look at that framework, we need to be conscious and already know what we want, what we're looking for. Ms. Hoskins, while we are having this conversation, certain things that, that I've requested speaks to just things that we can do in the meantime that, before we, give out, major contracts. Some of the, this is the reason it's why I want to get some of that information as soon as possible so that we can justify. And again, I think that, if the board wants a disparity study, then, so be it, have a disparity study. But in the meantime, while we're getting a disparity study done, I still think that it's incumbent upon us to do what we know is right and what we can legally do, what we can do within the law to distribute these resources more equitable. I'm not just talking, I'm not just talking about race or gender. I'm just talking about the people. Home, I'm talking about taking care of home first. I'm talking, just because the majority of our community is black, if this was just, if the majority of our community was white and the money belonged to this community, be it white or black, I would still say take care of home first and let the local distribution of dollars flow within the city. So that's what you got to understand. You got to understand that I'm talking about taking care of home first and the equitable distribution of dollars. I'm not talking about race. That's what I'm saying.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor, you recognize.
Thank you. Have we ever explored the idea of contacting, and I know this is a common practice in a lot of the metropolitan areas, some of the universities that might be interested in doing the disparity study?
No,
Whenever
sir.
have, or the research for it, because the University of Florida, we're surrounded by the colleges, universities right in this area in the county. So I would like to mention that.
Yes, I appreciate the mention of that, but you cannot, a disparity study has to be performed by a firm that has a track record in doing it. It's not simply a research program. It is a defending of the data, defending of the program that will result in it. So there is much more than data review that comes from the study. So we wouldn't want to have a college to come in and do that type of review for us. We would need a firm that is very astute and versed in the data collection, the anecdotal, and all things that are associated with the study.
So not even to do the basic research?
No, sir. A
I
firm
know they do it
would
for the
not.
Police departments and a lot of different things all over the country. Thank you. I
Disparities are
just
just
thought
a
I'd
tad
mention
bit.
it.
No, I appreciate that, but disparity studies are just a tad bit different because
Okay.
it goes into Croson and the whole case of defense.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Okay, so Madam City Manager, you will look for funding. The Office of Small Business Assistance will send you some of the RFP language that we received from other counties around the state of Florida, and we will look specifically for those that have cities the size of ours for the study. What were you asking? Okay. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Little.
Thank you.
We are now on to legislative, which is on page 5.
Madam Chair,
Madam Manager.
the legislative budget was prepared with no increases in the operating budgets. So if you have a desire to look at your travel or your communication services, promotional accounts, the budget is basically flat. There are funds in here for employee development also. And I know, and as you pointed out earlier, the chair, I believe, is still showing in District 2, and it should be in District 3, the salary. So we'll make that correction.
Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, recognized. Page 5.
The first one on page 5, where it says, which one is, who is that for? Because it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the mayor. What is this one?
That's the general operations, and remember, the mayor has his family and friends event that comes out of the, out of that particular, general operating. We pay for the copier out of there, and, I believe the, supplies related to the city council meetings that are held, for the snacks and stuff that we buy for the city council meetings. So the big promotional, number is for the mayor's family and friend event that's held monthly.
So only the family and friends comes out of the promotional one?
Yes, ma'am.
I think the job fair, too.
What was it, 30 and then 5 for job fair?
I think it was 5 for the job fair, yeah.
Okay.
I think it was 25 and 5, I think. But I know there was a little bit for the job.
This is for everybody, or?
No, just for the office. The supplies that Lynn purchased, and then the job fair, the family and friends event, communication services, and then you have the vehicle.
Okay, so that's for the Madam Chair. So I was looking at the travel, and I had a question for Mr. Sherman. For the actual FY 2017, the amounts, does this include CRA amounts that were used as well?
No.
Okay.
Are you talking about because it's 7,500 across the board for every one of them?
No, because of the actual being over.
Oh, okay.
Actual where?
On the one, on this page.
On 2017 or
No,
the?
on this page.
Oh, okay.
She's on this page.
I don't have that.
It should be.
Let's just keep going behind.
Okay.
All right, well, I'll just throw this out here and we'll see where it goes. With the travel, I noticed, and that was the reason why I asked for the travel, to see for each department if we were actually, if everyone was actually using those funds, or if they were going over it, or were they far under it, because I wanted to propose that we cut the travel down for the, well, we're doing legislative now, so and I looked at the other departments, but I didn't, I just got it today, so wanted to propose that we cut the travel down, perhaps by half.
Madam Chair, when will you finish?
Okay. And then for the communication services, that's the cell phone bill, the cell phone, and what else?
Cell phone, the air card for your, what is it?
Your Wi-Fi.
iPad, the landline, and I believe that's it. So it'd be the cell phone, the air cards for your iPads if you have them for your computers, and the landline phone.
Okay. And then the, and then also looking at the promotional, cutting that as well, cutting that by half. Because I know one of the things that I do want, and I mentioned last night, is about the police being able to get those officers. And if we could cut some of that, like the travel throughout the different departments, because a lot of departments don't really utilize it based on the list that I'm looking at. Just trying to see how we can come up with ways to have more officers to assist with the decrease of the crime.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
now, had
Oh,
you
I'm
all
sorry.
come
I'm
up with?
sorry.
You can't let it go. I know, you can't let it go. It's okay. It's okay.
No,
It's
ma'am,
okay.
believe me, I'm okay, trust me.
Yes, ma'am.
I have, because I had in the back of my mind, I think you said you wanted to add one officer, or you, for Singer Island, or how many had you all agreed on, or you had?
We didn't agree.
Add one officer for Singer Island.
Add, I know Councilwoman Botel wanted to have 24-hour coverage.
Which would be it's
Which-
three officers would be the equivalent of having 24-hour coverage.
24-hour coverage.
Madam Chair.
But, Madam Chair, I would like to
One,
ask.
one moment. Oh, she was still talking. We'll come. Are you done?
Oh, no, but she was, weren't you going to,
Hold on.
were you answering?
Never mind.
Does that tie in with the question I was asking
No,
about?
no, go ahead. I'm sorry, I think I jumped too fast.
Okay. What's your question, Councilwoman Miller Anderson?
Well, I was talking about having the additional officers, which, to answer your question, I think she said it was 3 for her, and then 4 is what was mentioned for the
Total of 7.
yeah, it was total of 7. And, okay, that's it for the moment.
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize?
I would like to ask if Mr. Sherman could take a look at the budget with an eye toward exactly what Councilwoman Miller Anderson has suggested, and that would be travel, especially for council and other administrators and other areas of the budget, Mr. Sherman, with an eye toward acquiring those 7 additional police officers, making cuts wherever it seems to be feasible, so that we can have that additional police presence.
Well, let me ask this question. I'm not opposed to reducing travel for council, but the one thing that we do need to consider is there are professional development trainings and other certifications that do require travel, so we need to be cognizant of that fact. We discussed on last night looking into the budget to identify dollars that could accommodate the requests that you made as it related to police on the island. We did not discuss last night the full funding of 7 positions because we knew that was going to be a cost. And we are getting ready at some point to go back into union negotiations, so we've got to think about that as well, right? So we need to, I don't know what the position of the other members of council as it relates to the reduction of their travel budget. I don't have a problem with that. Chair Pro Tem was next, and then you're recognized.
It's true, we didn't discuss having 7 new officers. I'm definitely not in favor of having a 4-man task force put together, because we have a new unit that was just put together that will be going out on the street, which would definitely be more productive than the description for the 4-person task force. Adding 1 more officer for for Singer Island to have 24-hour service at all the time, I don't have a problem with that. However, I do have a problem with reducing the travel and the promotion of the individual council people. I do think that an individual council person should have the right to reduce their own promotion or their travel. If they see that they want to reduce promotion dollars and put them somewhere else, then that should be up to them. I don't think that that everybody should have to live under that particular desire or whim, because I think it's incumbent upon us to educate ourselves, to find out more about best practices and things that was going on for the sake of procurement and equity. This last National Coalition of Black local elected officials was the most informative thing that I could bring back to this city to address the equity issues that we're having, so that I'm putting those together to distribute. I know that I don't, the meetings aren't to go out and play. They're jam-packed. You're exhausted when you get back. So it's not like it's just willy-nilly go on a trip and misuse the funds of the public. We have to go and lobby for the dollars that come back for this city, establish relationships so that people can help us to get the dollars that we need. Yes, we have our own lobbyists, but our lobbyists need us to support them. So as far as if we're going to cut the promotional accounts if we vote to cut all of our promotional or our travel or anything, then there's other things that I see that we need to cut. Because I want to promote what I want to promote. I have ideas and things that my district need, and but I would never stand in the way of any other council people cutting their promotional dollars or their travel.
Madam Chair? She here?
Oh, it's Mr. Davis's turn.
Oh. Like, is she adjourning or what?
I just wanted you to know.
The gavel has exchange hands. This is what I will say. I don't want to talk about the police budget because we had a chance to do that last night, and the chief of police is not here tonight. But there are some things that he will present to us to give us some ideas so we all accomplish our goals across the entire city, while we all do support that. But as far as travel, if you look at just 2017 and 2018, as we get ready for 18, prior to this, in 2000, I believe, Sherman, what year we went from 5,000 to 75? Was it 2015 or 14? Okay. It was a year that we originally was at $5,000 a year on travel.
It's not on there.
So, okay, thank you. So in 2015, we went from 5,000 to 7,500, correct, Mr. Sherman?
Correct.
Thank you. And one of the things that happened at that time, for those that may not recall or weren't here, is that, as you know, when you go through, like the chair stated, when you have your trainings, your certifications, they require travel. When you have issues that are going on from the federal level, the state level, I know this year alone, I know Councilperson Hubbard and former Councilperson Pardo had to run back and forth to Tallahassee on the drop of a dime on some money that we needed and we was fighting to get. In 2014, we had an issue where most of the council people were hitting their budgets early because there were so many things that were going on at that time, and then they had to tap into this. Some folks had to tap into the city manager's travel, and that became an issue. You know, $7,500. I know when you look at mine, last year I spent not even $3,000 last year. Some folks went over the $7,500, some didn't. But that's the cost of doing business. I mean, when we leave here, you know, we're charged to bring something back, and I have yet to see anyone who's done some travel that has not brought anything back. So, you know, we got over a $70 million corporation, the enterprise that we're trying to run here, and to cut a budget in half when we're trying to bring in more money, more grants, more services, more support. You know, we got this water utility district plant that's going to come up in the near future, and there's going to be a lot of advocating going on for that, because you're talking about, if Mr. Horton was to chime in, you're talking about potential another $100 million in the next 10 to 15 years that the city's gonna need. And that's not gonna come from the taxpayers. We have to be aggressive here. And if you ask me, I believe, we being very, how can I put it? We're not being aggressive enough with the travel money, but, we, for some reason, Riviera Beach is always targeted and always got eyes on us if we doing something wrong when we just doing our jobs. I haven't seen anyone on this board go to jail for some misuse of travel. I do believe that we all have our expertise that we focus in, and I know with the League of Cities, sitting on those committees, most of us have been very active on that committee, and because of that, the League of Cities and those trainings, I can at least say from my standpoint, from the District 5 office, the League of Cities have put me in a position to actually know what I'm talking about. And I'm not laughing at.
I am.
It just I had a visual because I saw that.
What happened?
It was an entertaining moment, but I saw great balance by our city clerk. But just to close out, but we all from year to year, some years you spend more money than less, and I think where we are now is very comfortable where we are, and if you look at the last 5 years of travel from this different districts, you will see that number fluctuate back and forth. But to cut it off and then issues happen, you got to come back in an amendment to a budget. You get what you pay for, man. We have to go outside of Palm Beach County and go get the ideas, bring the resources, bring the community partnership. I can tell you one of the best experiences I had. I went to Atlanta with the mayor when I first got it. It was 2014, when was it Morehouse Medical Institute? And they talked about healthy communities. It was a 12-week course that was jammed into 1 week. And I tell you, they worked us to death. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, they worked us to death. And there's a lot of good information came back, and we was able to use some of those resources to go after a lot of that food desert money that we're still trying to get, that Michelle Obama has put in place. Riviera Beach is designated as a food desert. So it's going to take some time and energy to go out and do initiatives just like that, so.
Madam Chair. Miller Anderson. I will be the first to say that going to conferences is very important. I do value going to conferences and attending the different sessions. So there's no disagreement on that part. And, forming the relationships, meeting people, getting different ideas from people across the country, participating on the different committees, I do all of that. So you're kind of speaking to the choir in regards to that. I am not saying we don't need to do that anymore because, professional development is important as always. But I do want everybody to keep in mind that, we have $10,000 in travel on the CRA side. And a lot of these sessions that we attend cross over with CRA. So we have $10,000 over there for travel and CRA. Cutting this one in half on the city side is, that would only take $3,000 from $17,000. So I'm not saying we don't need to do any of that, but I'm simply saying that if we need to start looking to cut somewhere. And to Ms. Hubbard's point about individual council people wanting to cut their own budget, obviously we can do that because I did that with the utility district stipend. I didn't take that. So I understand and support individuals having their own say in what happens with their budget. And I will definitely consider doing that. I don't have a problem with it because I know that the attendance of these conferences can still be accomplished, and that would not hinder anyone from doing that. The promotional, it's just a matter of, prioritizing. So I'm in favor of doing that, cutting that as well for myself if the others do not want to do that. So for me, I would cut my travel to $4,000, from $7,500 to $4,000, and the promotional from $5,500 to $3,000. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor, you recognize?
Yeah, just for the record, I don't get a travel or promotion on the CRA side, so I'm not included in that number. And the mayor is the official ambassador for the city, and it's required a lot of the mayor to meet with people and go all over the country and sometimes different parts of the world. The mayor is a member of the World Conference of Mayors. He's a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and a member of the National Conference of Mayors, and all three are important. So I will do the best I can to be a good steward of my travel and promotion, and at the same time accomplish the goals that will continue to move the city forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Chair.
Not one dime. That's exactly what I mean.
Councilwoman Patel, you recognize.
I probably shouldn't have specified when I asked that Mr. Sherman take a look at cutting some things in the budget. I probably shouldn't have specified council, although I agree with the fact that we could probably cut some things, particularly travel and promotional, out of the legislative accounts. But I still want to make the point that I would like Mr. Sherman to take a look at wherever we can find money in the budget. My constituents on Singer Island are adamant about wanting that police protection.
Right.
So I hope that we can do that.
Right,
So I wanna make
and
that
to
point.
your point, the constituents on the west side, we would be flipping through that budget, trying to figure out where to cut so that we can make everyone happy and whole, because there have been things that we've been asking for on this side of town that has gone unaddressed. So, you know, I would say in totality, we would just look to where we could cut. For District 3, promotional has been our way of advertising and providing information on sessions. So I would not be interested in cutting the promotional budget. I don't have heartburn about the reduction of travel, as long as we understand that we need to clarify what travel can actually be applied to CRA, because it has special requirements. Someone's ringing, but it has special requirements, and we need to be mindful of what those requirements are so that we don't find ourselves in violation of that travel policy and the utilization of those dollars. So we may want to take a look. We may want to take a look at what is a permissible travel use on the CRA side if we are trying to utilize those dollars for city-related travel.
Darlene can talk to you about that.
Councilwoman Patel, you recognize.
Where does the car allowance come from? Where does that?
That's in your salaries, up in
Okay,
the top line.
Could we perhaps do an analysis of that figure too, to see, you know, I don't know what people, I know what my car costs me. I lease my car, so I know what that costs me. I don't know what other people's actual car expenses are. I wonder if we could ask maybe the finance department or whoever, somebody who runs a fleet, to do an analysis of what the real expenses are for a council person to have a car, and whether that's an excessive amount, because people in the community have said to me, boy, that's an awful lot of money to give a person every month just to have a car. So maybe that's another area that I don't know. I know that for me, it does seem like a lot of money.
Well, I think you have to take into consideration the number of meetings where you travel to those meetings on behalf of the city. There are times when we are down in, you know what I mean? So
Just something to look at.
And I think that we also need to look at wear and tear on the personal vehicles and how, and the maintenance and all of that thing.
One last thing on this
One moment. I just wanted to finish that point. You know, we just have to look at all things that are encompassed in it.
When we travel, could we make it an agreement that when we come back from traveling, we share with the public that we've been somewhere and here's what we learned?
Absolutely.
Just because that's, you know, an important thing for people to say, well, gee, they spent money, they went somewhere, what do we get out of it? You know, what did they learn from that? I think it would be important for us to make a commitment that every time we spend $1 for travel, we come back and we make a report about that travel so that the community knows.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chair Pro Tem, you recognize?
I think that one thing that we need to consider is insurance, because the fact that we use our car for business up and down the road, that and we have to make sure that we're covered as well. So, you know, and they're not giving away insurance these days. So we can definitely add that figure into it. And I
The
think that's
analysis,
why,
yeah.
right, because I know that we definitely want to keep ourselves covered as we go up and down the highways. So I don't think that's being an exorbitant cost when we're talking about $500, when 300 of it is going to insurance.
Are there any further comments?
Oh, by the way, Madam Chair, I wouldn't be interested in anybody taking mine out of the CRA or doing that type of analysis. I want to keep mine just as it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further comments? All righty, where are we going now, madam? We are going to executive.
Yes, ma'am.
We are 10 minutes before 10, before the clerk looks up. It doesn't matter. All righty, we are in workshop.
What are we doing?
Executive,
We're going to executive now. We are in executive administration.
What are we talking about?
we're going to
I thought we were
executive
going to
session.
executive session.
No, we're going into the executive administration budget.
On what page?
That is on page 5. I'm sorry, page
13, I
13.
think.
Thinking, did we do something I missed? Executive session?
That's tomorrow, though, right?
Yes, that is tomorrow.
It can't be tomorrow already.
It is.
Say something tomorrow.
Session tomorrow.
Page.
Which tab is it for the book,
So-
big book?
Pardon?
The big book.
Big
Four?
book? Hold on.
Four? That's legislative. Madam Chair,
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, recognized.
I don't know where, at what point, I know during the time when I had the Citizen Leadership Academy, I talked about possibly having that in the budget. So where would that come from? Would that be city administration? Because it would be a city-funded event. And I think it cost maybe about $6,000.
That was initially used the stipend money,
Well,
right?
I did, but once we
Split
got rid
over.
of that, that's,
Right,
I
right.
said that if we got rid of it, make it a city initiative.
Okay, well, I would have to, if it's the council's desire, I would have to go back and add it to general administration, right.
Madam Chair,
Councilman Davis, you recognize.
I would like an analysis of the costs associated with administrative costs and time so we can have the proper budget to request for this potential item.
We have it available, we'll just make sure you get it.
No,
What
I'm talking staff.
You talking about for the
Talking-
Citizen Leadership
City manager,
Academy?
Yeah.
Mr. Sherman is already, they have it, so we can get it to you, that's all.
It's not $6,000
How do you know?
because one's a deputy city manager, public works director, a fire chief, a police chief, all those folks, that's a heavy administrative cost. There's no one in the world that's $6,000.
What are you talking about?
Talking about
I
the
think that's
academy.
for operating
Operation costs.
supplies.
That's
You're
not,
talking about-
that need to be added to the budget when you're talking about doing the academy.
For what, to have them come and do a presentation? I don't,
Madam Chair,
what are you saying?
can I finish?
Councilman Davis, you're recognized.
When
He's
you do
addressing
it-
his
when-
question to the city manager.
City manager.
Councilwoman.
Talking city manager. When you have a program, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're not doing it for free, am I correct? All the different presentations.
Well, they're salaried, so
But it's cost associated with time, it's a cost associated. Cause my issue is 2 weeks ago, we had like 2 or 3 different meetings We had different people doing different events and different activities. Staff was drugged all over the city, and we still understaffed. So my question is, we need to know when we start asking for all these extra things, what is the full cost associated with it? Not saying that we don't want it. We need to look at all these numbers because everything has a cost associated with it. That event, I believe, is great, but we need to know what the cost associated with, the full cost. And if there's salary, there's still a cost associated with it.
Oh, they don't get it all.
Because you're taking folks that are here in a late meeting like tonight. So we got a meeting on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Let's say there was an event Thursday, right? Right, there was an event tonight, earlier today. They would have to have some energy to come back on a late Thursday night, do a presentation, come back the next day, get ready for a budget meeting. We have to look at the whole plan associated with it. Do we want to hire or consult with a staff or someone to help just run that and save costs and still run a more effective program where we're not wearing staff out? You know, it got to be a more efficient way to do it where we're not beating our staff up with all our different, not just this one event. What I'm saying is we have a series of events, huh?
Exactly.
So a more creative way might be doing is to look at maybe hiring somebody to administer your academy that you want to do that's in place. Because, Mr. Horton, you recall it was about 2 weeks ago, and I called you, and we was just having the job, and I asked you was it okay because, how many hours did you work? You know what I'm talking about. It's about 2 weeks. Talk about that week that we went through. Let's talk about it.
I believe you're talking about a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me.
And I asked the question.
You asked the question, and you asked how many hours did I put in that particular week.
Yes, sir.
And between the city manager and myself, it was around 120 hours.
And then they're asked to deliver us on a certain level of service and professionalism. And this is happening quite a bit. All I'm stating is, until we get all of our positions staffed, we need to consider potentially doing some professional services or letting someone come in and run that program. They can talk about all those different things to give our community what you're trying to accomplish.
Manager.
But we must protect the staff that we have left, and we must encourage them and support them as we get more staff. But until then, we need to know what these costs are, because we had a budget workshop yesterday. We had one today. Prior to this, we had the police night out. Tomorrow, we got the CRA meeting. Before that, we got a closed executive session. Saturday morning, we have a groundbreaking ceremony over on the south side that we will all be attending. The staff will be there, and there's overtime associated with that. All these events have a cost, and staff ain't but so many hours a day that you can sleep, ain't but so many hours a day that you can work. If we want our people functioning at a high functioning level so they can deliver a level of service that we can support and praise of a great job at Riviera Beach, we have to be very mindful of all the different things that we are asking them to do. That's all I'm saying. And if we can find a way to do some professional service to relieve them of some of that, I think it'll be a great opportunity. But, you know, we're going to have them here late tonight. They got to come back to work early in the morning, do everything we told them to do. And if you just look at just this year alone, I pulled all the meetings that we had in the last 18 months. We've had more meetings in this 18-month cycle than probably in the history of Riviera Beach. And staff is being asked to do more than enough, and it really shows what kind of talent we really do have, that they're actually been able to deliver it. But at some point, we have to take those things in consideration. That's all I'm stating.
Okay.
That's all I'm stating.
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Davis, with that being said, what are you asking staff to do simplistically?
Just to consider maybe sitting down with Councilperson Miller Anderson to talk about the program from last year and figure out what type of professional service we can have someone lead to administer a program, maybe working with the Florida League of Cities, with addressing all the different divisions and presentations, at least just for this year, until we get all these vacancies that we all have in this chart here filled. We have to do what we need to do to support this city, this packet that we all have here with all these different vacancies. Staff have to do a lot of excess lifting to get there, we need to focus on getting this done, but at the same time, at least for this year, maybe do some professional services to keep the program going so we can allow staff to do the supervision, the oversight, the training. Because they're working for this board, there's a lot to be asked to do. And I backed off a lot on staff with the consideration that you're working for 5 members of the, well, 6 members, including the mayor, and we all have our different asks. But at the same time, you know, when a person put in over 100 some hours a week, and that's just not one individual. I mean, you got the city manager that did it. I didn't even get a chance to do a survey. If we was to do a survey of all our department heads of the amount of time they put in this year, I think we would have a very interesting outcome of what they have been doing and how they've been holding the city up and what they've been going through. And we have to take those things in consideration, at least for this year. Let's pull this city together, fill these vacancies, put people to work, train people in the community. But at the same time, we still can do the same program, but let's use some of those other resources like the Florida League of Cities. They maybe can help in and step in and provide the things that you did in that training last year. That's all I'm stating.
Mr. Davis, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson, the dollars that you just reduced from your budget, could they be allocated to the Citizens Academy?
I don't have a problem with that at all. However, when we talked about, and we can do that, I don't have a problem with that, because that's the way I did it with the utility district stipend. So I don't have a problem with that, but I do want to clarify a few things about this program. Is one, about the staff. If their salary, there's no overtime for that. And then number 2, it's a 10-week program. Each department head came maybe once or twice for about an hour each. We're talking about 10 weeks out of 52 weeks. We're not saying that they need, and when they came in, and we have to understand that most of them put in their as goals for them to do some kind of community outreach. So that would go along with what they're doing, is educating the public. So they're not doing the heavy lifting of organizing the entire program. They're just simply presenting information about their department to let the community know how it operates. I don't see bringing someone from the Florida League of Cities to talk about what's going on in the city of Riviera Beach when we have department heads that do the job every day. And they're only there for an hour once a week, maybe 2 hours, because they do the children and the adults, but that's one time, and they're done out of 10 weeks. They're not coming, all of them are not coming every day, every week for 10 weeks. We're talking 2 days in 10 weeks for 2 hours. So I don't see where this is going to take them away from a whole lot of their main job component, because it's not that serious. And then also, the professional services, that's not needed, because I did all of the work in terms of, putting things out, and that's where part of the money came from with the shirts. And I mean, there's a lot of things that's already in place. So it may not even be that amount of money, because a lot of that, the groundwork was already laid for it. So I don't need to reinvent a whole lot. Getting someone to organize it, we didn't pay anybody to do that anyway. I mean, I did it. So, and then they did most of the work when they did the presentation, which was 2 hours. Okay? So they're not doing a whole lot of anything other than presenting something that they would do anyway if they had to go out and do a community event. And then I just had a question about, putting in, accounting for how much it would cost for them to attend. When we have these other events, and we all have our events, the ribbon cutting for Cunningham and Riviera Beach Heights and your movie nights and all of that, are we all figuring in money to have these people on site? Because I've never heard of that. Is that something we've done in the past?
Madam Chair.
This is my first time.
No, and
Madam Chair, can we cut?
I want to move this along. I mean, I understand that you feel the need to rebut, and I understand.
I'm
But
fine.
I'm good with it, but I
I
don't
just
want to
think
do
that at
something
this
crazy on the
particular
record.
point-
No,
Right,
I'm
but
fine with, I was just talking
I'm
about
good.
this has been a unique year, and I'm not saying what she's doing.
And your
I
point
don't
is
support
taken.
it. But it's been very clear about what I had to say. That's all.
Okay,
No.
your point is taken, but I would like to, I try to be liberal in your conversations, but sometimes we just seem to go on unnecessarily. So I would just ask that we come back to executive, allowing the city manager to present her budget. You have asked that they identify some places for funding. I also suggested that maybe the monies that you just gave up could be allocated, which seems to be reasonable. Now let's go on to hear from the city manager with regards to the executive budget.
Madam Chair, the city administration organizational chart consists of economic development, internal audit, grants, and departments. The grants, which would include the youth empowerment grants, reentry grants, civil drug court, internal audit. We have internal auditor and economic development. We have a economic development position and a small business position within the organizational chart. Departmental overview, and this is just for city administration. The FY 17-18 budget total $1.1 million. Personnel costs $946,000. Operating costs $196,000 and $10,000 for capital. For FY 19, the total budget is $1.3 million. Personnel, total cost $1.1 million, which is a 18% increase. And operating costs are basically the same, $196,461. With capital, the same dollar amount of $10,000. And that funds a total of 10 positions. As it relates to budget modifications, there are none. The goals for FY 19 up until April. I had to throw that in there. Or earlier, administer day-to-day operations of the city, hire a professional, a highly competent and motivated city workforce, continue to provide training to upgrade staff skill set, and citywide beautification to enhance the appearance of the city's infrastructure, and so the citizens can feel safe and secure.
Madam Chair, I just, but not necessarily with relation to, it relates to the budget, but I wondered where we were with the RFP to acquire the services of a firm to assist with city administration evaluation.
We were still working on wordsmithing it. It should go out soon.
What I sent you.
Right, right.
Thank you.
And you all voted, I think it was, what, July 18th meeting to put it out there?
Let me say this, in light of the fact that we have a new timeline for city manager, I believe that with that timeline and the potential selection of a city manager, that city manager should be able to come in without us expending any additional dollars to do just that. Because if we have someone who has the experience that we are looking for as it relates to a county administrator, city manager, city assistant for both county and city, I believe that that person would be able to do that. We continue to for lack of a better word, micromanage the staff from the dais as opposed to allowing the manager to do just that. We still need to have an overall evaluation, but I believe that a city manager can come in and do that. Do we want to expend those dollars? And if that is the case, you know, again, I say, we've had someone that was waiting in the wings forever to come in and help us do that. And as a matter of fact, there are, you know, we talked about local folks and we talked about other names, but I'm just wondering, you know, we're talking about identifying these dollars to cover these costs for these police positions. I'm just wondering, do we want to expend those dollars for that purpose?
I think we do, yeah. I think we don't want to go back on the decision we made to issue that RFP. So if you're asking my opinion, yes, we do.
I appreciate it.
I think we desperately need to, actually. I think we need, sooner rather than later, to have someone come in and assist us with evaluating the city's administrative functions. Yes, absolutely.
Madam Chair.
Without a doubt.
Okay. Thank you for your comment, Councilwoman Botel. Councilman Davis, you recognize, please.
What I will say is, at that time, I was trying to be supportive of one of our new colleagues' position of understanding what direction she wants to go, understanding how to operate as a team. We try to do that. But at the same time, I do believe it keeps being stated about cost savings. And I do believe in the time we get a chance to do a significant cost savings, I don't believe that this city is at a point to where we need somebody to come in, because my support in that item was more so focused on getting folks to understand how our functions are, because a lot of the things we talked about, the ORG was already kind of in here, raising questions, raising recommendations. There have been reports, things of that far. But this city administration, through different professionals, has been running at a high level, I would say continuously running at a high level under all conditions. But for some reason, there's always a question of the way that we run a business, no matter who's at the helm at this city, no matter who's at the council level, no matter who's at the city manager level. There's always a big question on how we run a city. But I do learn that once you get in this seat and spend some significant time working together with everyone, being very open, we have folks that help us out a lot. The Florida League of Cities, when I first got elected, I understood to be a very instrument of training that allowed me to see how much I really knew before I got here and how much I didn't know, and how to evaluate a process and understand that it's different. And I've accepted that there's always room for improvement, and let's see what type of leader we get at the helm before we spend that cost. You know, I can feel comfortable with that.
So has everyone had an opportunity to provide their wordsmith language to the city manager on this RFP?
No, ma'am.
I suggest you get that done.
Has anybody done it? Okay, so I am willing to go with the balance of this body. However, we need to finish. There was a review of the language for the RFP because everyone wanted to be able to weigh in on what we were looking for as it related to the services for this evaluation, this in-house evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been done?
I sent my
No.
suggestions.
I would like to review, sit down with staff and review.
Close of business Friday?
That's fine with me. It'd be Friday.
Close of business Friday.
Friday, I'll be there.
Mr.
Hold
Little,
on, let me ask Ms. House, you have the
one
time,
second,
Mr.
Mr. Davis, please. Mr. Little, what is the time frame that the item has to be on the street? Is it 30 days?
30 days.
It has to be on the street for 30 days.
30 days.
So 30 days from now takes us to September 8th?
8th.
And that includes weekends, so we don't do business days, we do
Correct.
calendar days?
Calendar days.
30 days. So we need everyone to weigh in to review that document so that we can get it. it appears that I don't know, well, I know that there is concern, and I have concerns as well, because the city has operated interestingly for a number of years.
Just
So-
like any other city.
But I wanted to be able to give a city manager an opportunity to review. But if this body feels that having an external person come in and review is the better way to go, I am one vote. Are you done with, that's what I wanted to ask, the time frame.
I'll review Friday.
If you would go back to general administration, please. Okay, one more, right there. So this is the general administration budget, and this is the budget that pays for our state and federal lobbyists, contingency. We make transfers from the general fund over to the debt service funds. We pay our CRA TIF out of this fund also. The operating budget for FY 17-18 was $19 million. And for fiscal year 18-19, it's going down to $18.6 million, a reduction of 17.94%. Operating cost, excuse me, 2.7 million for FY 18 versus FY 19 of 1.965 million. Transfers, as I stated earlier, those transfers are your debt service transfers for the pension obligation bonds and other bonds that we've issued. Excuse me. CRA TIF. For FY 18, the CRA TIF amount is $5.4 million compared to FY 19 is 5.429, slight increase, 0.4%. Okay, we can go to the next one. For the operating budget for Economic Development Department, which houses two positions. For FY 18, the adopted budget was $247,000. For FY 19, the recommended budget is $263,000 for an increase of 6.68%. And as I stated earlier, funds two full-time positions, the economic development manager and then the small business person.
Madam Chair.
And both of those positions are vacant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're vacant. And I don't know what you all's desire is. We could use some of that money for the disparity study. I mean,
Madam Chair.
Commissioner, Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
So this is a new position that we added in 2018.
Correct.
But we never filled it.
The small business one was filled up until maybe January, and that person left. But the manager, no, was never filled.
Mr., what was his name?
For the small business?
Yes.
Kevin Brown.
Yeah,
Kevin Brown.
Kevin Brown.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, moving on. I'm sorry.
Continue.
So information technology,
What page is that? That's in the back.
we have Mr. Justin Williams here if you have any questions, but I'll read it. The interim IT manager is not feeling well, so he was not able to make it tonight.
That's tab 7.
So in FY 18, you did add the IT director. Where's my help? Move it, okay, thank you. So this is the organizational chart.
Technology Fund.
Right, that's a,
Information Technology Fund.
right, that's considered an internal service fund, so that's on the tab, what, 7?
Okay, 7-1, okay.
So we have network operations, systems operation and service desk, the GIS systems, and then public safety operations. We have budgeted 11.5 positions. The FY18 budget adopted was 2.2 million, and for FY19, we're recommending $2.4 million. Yes, they're not all filled, no, no.
What's the total number?
We have 9 right now.
Come to the microphone,
Come
sir,
up,
please.
Sorry, stand up. This is why you should open your mouth, right? So, Justin Williams, Systems Administrator for the City of Riviera Beach. Yeah, right now, we just had a new employee start today, Stephen. We also have, he's on a temp to perm, and we also have another another IT tech starting in 2 weeks, and a network administrator. So now that leaves us up to a total of 9 in the department. We got the network administrator position filled, like I said, starting next week. That had been in the budget from last year, and that's finally being filled now, so.
Are there any other questions for IT?
And I'm sorry, I left off the goals for 19, but I will share those with you.
So the question that I have for IT, I sent an email this morning requesting the exact services that fall under IT for each department. Can you share with us?
So under each department, again, you have to excuse me, I'm a little confused by that. Because
How we put IT
transfer?
services into the city manager. Hang on one second.
Okay.
The IT transfer for each department, what is accompanied with those fees?
okay,
What services?
Randy, is Randy behind you?
Yeah, he's back there.
Based on the cost allocation plan, he can explain it. Let me pull it up.
Again, yeah, the way the cost allocation plan, and keep in mind, the IT, I want to say you probably have 3,000 to 4,000 work orders every year or something like that. And as we know, they can vary from my emails down to I got a new system I need installed. I mean, they're all over the place. So the way the cost allocation plan works is it's actually based on the number of users that each department has and the number of systems that they have. Because again, they have techs that will deal with all your PCs, they have a tech that deals with your telephones, they have, again, the system administrators that are dealing with the public safety process, they're dealing with, the financial system, fire department system, so they're moving around as needed. The library system, they move around. So the way that that the cost allocation plan was actually devised was based on not necessarily my work orders from this year versus my work orders from last year, but it's actually based on the number of users that they're managing. And again, so that can vary from year to year on exactly what my work orders may be versus what the utility districts may be for this particular year, but over time it'll balance out.
So the cost I'm trying to look at this on this phone. The cost allocation plan, I'm looking at 12, it says 12 parks and recreation, and then we have, I'm just going down the line to it, and it says 1.339 million. Total claimable cost, So, wait, IT for them would be 382,000?
Yeah,
Am I reading that properly?
your, your best place to probably look, if you want to look at individual departments, is, I want to say, is Exhibit A. So it's right up at the very front of the document.
Is that page 12?
Let me find the IT column here, which would actually be page 17. Well, actually, if you do it the other way, let me do it the other way.
What's the other way? What am I looking
Well, no, I'm sorry, I went too far. 17 is actually Exhibit B.
at? Exhibit A is on page 14 of 167.
Yeah, if you go to page 14, correct. And then you have to read across the lines. So if you actually look at all of Exhibit A, at the very last line, Exhibit A, for the 3 pages of Exhibit A is Info Systems. So you have to read it in the grid. So if you're actually looking at page 12, Info Systems is the last line. First column over is library. So your library is paying $85,000 for IT services. Public Works Transportation's paying, and again, I don't know what page you have on there, but
I went to page 14.
page 14, okay.
Okay, see, this is why it's important not to give us things the night of and expect us to be able to digest it. We're looking at it on small phones. So I'll just review, and whatever questions I have, I'll put them in an email.
Yeah, okay. And again, as I said, this has not been updated. This was run back in February, so this did not have the final proposed manager's budget for IT or fleet. So this would have to be updated, and then, again, as we go through and come up to the final budget numbers, we'll correct all those numbers.
So this is as of April 19th, is what it says, date printed. Do you have a different version?
No, April 19th, you're right, revised April 19th, right.
Okay, any other questions from the dais? Do you have anything further, Ms. Hoskins?
No.
That takes us where?
Too bad. Is that it?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Councilwoman Miller Anderson recognized.
For the executive administration, the positions that you have in the city manager's office, which position is Miss Kathy in? Which one is that?
She's actually paid through a temp agency.
Oh, okay.
Will she
But
be-
what position is that, though? Is that on here?
The receptionist,
Oh, okay.
Will she be made permanent? Are we planning to make her a permanent employee?
I'm looking at the, what do you call it? The,
Complement
Sorry.
employees?
no, there was an advertisement that was completed. I'm trying to see if the list is still valid or not. The eligibility list, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Well, I asked that question because she provides excellent customer service. She is attentive to your needs. She makes sure that you get to where you need to get to. And that is the true representation of what we want as the face of the city manager's office on first blush. I don't know how my colleagues feel about that, but I can tell
I
you
agree
that
with
she
you
has been
wholeheartedly, and I
amazing.
definitely would like to see her made permanent.
Madam Chair?
Naturally, I'm sure that, I know that there's a competitive process if there is that, but I am saying my experience in calling the city manager's office has been one of professionalism and superior service, and that is what we need here in this city. Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you recognize.
So for other positions, are we now making suggestions for employees to be hired?
No, I was just making a comment.
Okay.
I'm making a comment based on the experience. No, I don't do that, and you know that I don't do that.
Right.
It is just, that is a fact.
Okay.
So I'm not involved in the day-to-day. I don't suggest who gets hired and who does not, but in this particular instance, I'm making a note, and I think that it is of reasonable notice of the service that's provided. So if there is an opportunity to maintain, but no, I don't make recommendations as to who should get hired in any department.
Madam Chair.
Chair Pro Tem, you
And being
recognize.
that she'll be working for the city manager, the ultimate goal would be for the city manager to know who she wants her executive assistant to be. That was just my 2 cents, and you know, it was worth just that, 2 cents. 2 cents? I thought it was 3.
Are there any other comments? We have, budget, what is our next meeting for budget?
August 20th,
Everyone have that on their calendar?
immediately following the utility district meeting.
And what is that, capital?
Capital.
And then from there, do we meet anymore?
No, that's it. Then we'll have our first public hearing September 6th.
So if there are any concerns or comments or questions or whatever, we need to get it to you, and then that, we'll be able to circle back on that
The
date.
20th.
On the
Right,
20th?
right. And I'll work on the issues you said with police to come up with some suggestions for that and the other items that you mentioned. And then if you have any other, like you said, questions or concerns, just let me know and we'll address it August 20th.
Okay.
There being no further business, we stand adjourned.
Horn say that the August